Welcome, everybody. This is a meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the County of Annapolis. I apologize to everybody for the late starting because we've had some issues with respect to the Zoom call that we're on this morning. But it appears as though we've resolved all of that, so we will begin and go through the agenda. The first is the roll call. I'll go through the councilors. District 1.
Bruce Prout.
District 2. You're muted, Councillor Connell.
Brian Fuzzy Connell.
District 3 is myself, Alan Parrish. District 4.
Alberto.
District 5.
Lynn Longmire.
District 6.
Alec Morrison.
District 7.
David Hudson.
District 8.
Michael Gunn.
District 9.
Wendy Sheridan.
District 10.
Red Redden.
And District 11.
Diane LeBlanc.
Thank you very much. Now, you've all received a copy of the agenda for today. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda as circulated?
Yes.
I don't see any. I don't know if I'm missing anybody, but I don't see any. So I will call for a motion to approve the agenda as circulated. Would someone make? Councillor LeBlanc moves. Councillor Longmire seconds. Any further discussion on the agenda? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Looking for that.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Now we have a number of minutes to approve because we had 3 committee of the whole meetings with respect to the budget that we passed a few weeks ago. First are the minutes of April the 7th, 2021. Are there any amendments or changes to those minutes as circulated? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote approving those minutes. Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded. Their seconder, Councillor Longmire. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next, the minutes of the special committee of the whole meeting of April the 8th, 2021, as circulated. Are there any amendments or changes to those minutes? I don't see any, so I will call for the vote. All those in favor. Oh, I need to have a motion. Sorry. A motion to approve. Deputy Warden, second. Councillor Hudson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next, the special committee of the whole meeting of April the 9th, 2021. Any changes or amendments to those minutes as circulated? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion to approve. Councillor Longmire moves. Councillor Connell seconds. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is the regular committee of the whole meeting from April the 13th, 2021. Are there any changes or amendments to those minutes as circulated? Deputy Warden.
Thank you. Thank you. About the Bear River, all it mentions in the Bear River report was that we accepted that report. It didn't mention that the motion was made by council back in the fall to send that letter to the government. And all it says in the minutes is the motion, motion or it was, approved by Gunn, or motion was made by Gunn and seconded by Longmire. I'm trying to find it here in my work to find exactly.
Let me just try and find it too. So this is the regular committee of the whole.
That's right, and that's where it was made at. The Bear River report came up there on Bear River, and I'm trying to find it. I ran across it yesterday, and I noticed that there was no mention of the fact that that motion was given to staff to send that letter, and it was never sent. It has just been sent. So I just wanted the minutes to reflect that. Thank you.
Is this the information report Bear River Project on page 27 of 127?
Is that where it's at?
Well, that's an information report. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
Okay, 27.
27 of 127 or 4 of 7. It says
Yeah, there it is.
re-information.
Yeah, information report on Bear River project. Well, we received the information, but it was also said in that, and I brought it up, that staff, or council made the motion to write a letter to the provincial office or the premier. It was said that no motion was made to actually send it. And my query was, why would we ask for a letter to be written and then not sent? So I have a bit of an issue there. It's nothing, it's all orchestrated by the office of the CAO, I'm sure, but so we'll leave it there. But there was no mention that letter, that motion was actually made. They're saying staff came back with saying there was no letter or there was no motion to send the letter. And I told them brought the motion forward, which was made, and the letter was never sent. So the minutes don't reflect that. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Are you happy to leave it the way it is, Deputy Warden?
I just wanted to make mention.
Okay.
So thank you.
Are there any other comments with respect to the minutes of the April 13th regular committee of the whole meeting? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve. Councillor Prout moves. Deputy Warden seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is are the minutes from the April 16th special committee of the whole meeting. This is the one where the budget was actually approved. Are there any changes or amendments to those minutes? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve. Deputy Warden moves. Councillor Longmire seconds. All those in favor say aye.
And
Aye.
for some reason,
Opposed?
I don't have my
Motion's carried.
picture.
Warden, can you just hold one moment, please, Warden?
So what do I do with that? Okay.
Yep, okay. Sorry, we're getting that. I'm sorry, I didn't get the last motion because I'm trying to manage the
Yeah. We approved the
Zoom.
minutes as circulated from the April 16th special committee of the whole meeting.
And who were the mover and seconder? I'm sorry.
I believe the Deputy Warden moved. Councillor Longmire seconded.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No. So are we all good to go here?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Next is the presentation from the Bridgetown Community Advisory Group regarding the sign, and I see my friend John Ray Lawrence there. Mr. Lawrence, are you making the presentation?
Nancy Price and I are kind of sharing.
Oh, there she is. Hello, Ms. Price.
Good day. We
Okay.
are going to share the presentation.
All right. I will say that the council has read your report, and it was a wonderful report, very fulsome, good pictures, details, quite appreciated. So please, both of you go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, Warden Parish, CAO, and councilors, municipal staff, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nancy Price, and I'm a volunteer on the fundraising committee with John Ray and Michael Parker. What we thought we would do today is just to give you a little bit of an update and some history about what has occurred, why we have decided we needed an electronic sign, and so on. I know you all have received the brief and have read it, so we're not going to put you to sleep and read word for word here. We'll just refer to various sections and just to give you a little bit of an update. So our objective today is to do that, to provide you with a little bit of a history of the Bridgetown Memorial Park including the electronic sign, and to give you an update with the progress. And then the third and final thing, of course, is to address the issues that you raised in the March 9th meeting. Just a bit of the history. We've been at this for a while, actually, since 2017, we were asked to be a part of a steering advisory committee. And we met with Nova Scotia TIR, county representatives, design staff. We were very much a diverse community organization. And actually, it was people all the way from Middleton to Annapolis Royal that took part in this. And we were consulted about absolutely everything to do with the sports hub. So, I think it's important for everyone to know that the greater Annapolis County was consulted throughout the development of the sports hub and the Memorial Park as well. The sports hub is on the site of the old Bridgetown Regional High School. It was a pretty heartbreaking day when that school came down. So it just seemed appropriate that section at the front of the park, that lovely tree grassy section, be designated as Memorial Park to honor the school, the history of the school. And now we have a chimney there for the chimney swifts. So there's another item of interest. And also to provide a learning area and a place to picnic and a place to sit and enjoy the facility. So if you go to page 2, the diagram, there's a lot going on in that diagram. I just want to orientate you to where that Memorial Park is going to be. At the top of the diagram, where all those bubbles are, that's Granville Street. You see the bluey purpley strip running sort of on an angle at the top of the page. If everybody can see that, that is Granville Street. That's highway number 1. So it is a very active, high profile area. A lot of traffic goes by that spot. So it just seemed appropriate for the sign to be located in that area. The park is going to include interpretive panels with the history of the school, information about the chimney swifts, a learning circle, benches, picnic tables, and it will be totally accessible. So once the decision was made by the steering committee that we needed to have an electronic sign to highlight events that were going on at the sports hub, and then it grew beyond that, of course. We need to invite communities. We need to invite anyone in the county if they have an event and they want to advertise on the sign, then we should make it available. We need to promote that park. We need to promote the sports hub. And it is a regional sports hub, and we need to do our best to promote it and to make people aware of the activities that are going to occur in that hub. So once this was decided, Deborah Ryan asked us for volunteers for fundraising. So John Ray and myself and Michael Parker volunteered to do just that. So at that time, I think that was about February 2020, and then COVID hit. But despite all that, we've still been able to move forward and do some fundraising, and we have been able to raise a substantial amount of money. The very first thing that we did was to solicit information from other communities that had signs. So we went to Clare, Acadia, the village of Kingston, Annapolis Royal Fire Hall, and asked them information about how much does your sign cost, what are the capabilities, and so on and so forth. And that's how we were able to raise our target for fundraising to 30,000 to 35,000. It's not set in stone, but that's kind of the target that we're aiming for, because it's not just the sign. We also want to make it aesthetically pleasing. And John Ray is going to talk to you more about that. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn you over to John Ray, and he's going to talk to you about the fundraising.
Thank
Good
you.
day, everyone. The fundraising, we started that, as Nancy said, early spring last year. Of course, COVID has not made the easy times for going door to door or anything like that. But as we've noted in the notes here, we've raised nearly $20,000 so far, which is pretty substantial. That number 30 to 35,000 we feel is a high number. I think if we can get to the mid 20s, we will be doing very well with that. Just recently, I went out my front door and talked to two businessmen who had to be in the parking lot, and $500 each later, another $1,000 with just a quick little conversation. We've touched base with the Recreation Committee, of course, through this whole thing with Deb Bryan has helped us. So besides the fundraising that we've been doing, we are planning a GoFundMe. That is ready to launch anytime. We were ready to do that a few months ago, and then a couple snags and that came up because we want to be able to do it. We are not for profit. We want to be able to, through the Community Foundation of Nova Scotia. So we want to be able to keep all the money we raise without having to pay a commission to GoFundMe. There has also been a grant applied for, and Deb Bryan, your Deb Bryan there, of course, is looking after that. Some smaller portion of that grant will go towards the sign, possibly if needed, but mostly focused on your Memorial Park. And the Memorial Park part of it kind of ties back to the sign in reference to everyone's good friend, Bill Hurdle, who was a track coach here for 30, 40 years and been influential in this town for 60 years, especially as a volunteer and fundraising type of person. And the sign is to have a little memorial plaque to Bill on it. We don't want, and I would assume the county wouldn't want it either, anything to do with advertising on the actual structure of the sign. We're thinking that you may want to, in the future, this will be up to you, if you want to have, people pay so much per week for a little flash of their business or upcoming event that's maybe not a community event. This is a regional sports complex. I'm involved with the ACA track club, and we have kids coming from Digby Neck, the Islands. There's 4 kids coming from Bridgewater. We have kids from West Kings coming. So even with COVID, that's the kind of draw we're getting without an event. So, and of course it's just new, so that's important. You can see we have 45 contributors so far in that little chart there, table 1, and 2 different provinces so far, but I'm sure once this GoFundMe opens up with social media, that's going to probably include every province in the country and probably a number of states as well. Moving on down below there to the page 3 and the issue cited by council, we've submitted a quick little figure 2 there that shows the design. The bricks from the old school, there's been a few of them saved, and where the old school was so aesthetically pleasing when you drove by, and a lot of people commented on that. For any community you went to, everyone talked about Bridgetown, the Bridgetown High School, the structure itself, and had the rounded corners. So we're hoping that you see in the bottom of figure 2, at some point in that sign, there will be some rounded corners, and that would represent the old school kind of thing. But of course, final design, you could send out to the community and ask for help on that, or whatever you want to do in that regard. We're really not involved in that. We just want to raise money and make this happen for you. It's a double-sided electronic sign, 4x8. Most community signs are about that size now. If you even drive around, there's different makers, of course, and whatnot. Now the sign itself, Nancy went door to door and checked with the local community, and everyone was behind it. No one's too concerned about the light at night or anything, but Nancy recently spoke to the Milton High School. They have a sign, and where this sign is Bluetooth connected, you don't need internet to run it, but you walk up with your laptop or your phone, you can change the messages on it, which I brought up a couple of years ago. It'd be nice to have a sign that didn't say Easter dinner and it was coming up on Halloween because somebody didn't change the letters type of thing. So this would be easy, very friendly that way. But also most of these new signs are so programmable. If at 10 o'clock at night, you want to dull it or even turn it off until the morning to save power. And, you know, not to bother local houses if there was any light off it, but it's also very controllable in the amount of light it does give off. So that should not be an issue. And we have talked to all of the neighbors about that. What's the other thing I want to say? Yeah, we've made no commitment, as you see the bottom of that page there, to any particular supplier. We've been working with one out of Shelburne, but we've just been recently aware of one in New Minas that may come a little cheaper. The other thing is Mike Parker and I both own excavators, and I have a construction crew that I will donate, and Mike will donate our time to help with digging and placing all this under the guidance of, well, it has to be an engineered structure, but that will also be looked after. Free of charge. So I think we do get that mid-20 range, and we're going to be looking pretty good at this. So I'll turn it back over now to Nancy for the site selection and all that kind of stuff.
Thanks, John Ray. The specific site selection was pretty much dictated by the placement of the power that was done during the Sports Hub undertaking. So if you turn to page 6, you'll see an aerial view of the area, and there's a little blue rectangle, bottom left-hand corner. And the vertical structure that you see to the right of that is the Chimney Swift Tower. And now if you look towards the bottom of that rectangle, that's the sidewalk, and that's highway number 1. So you can see what an advantageous location that is for people that are driving by to be able to see what's going on in their community. Now, the second diagram just below it gives you a little more information with distances. So we are exactly 100 feet. We measured it 100 feet, not from the base of that chimney, but from the chimney itself. And we're 33 feet from the center line of the road. So we're right on county land, and we're not going to be in the way of snow removal. It should be free of any snow at the base from snow removal. And that's basically it for site selection. And so now I'm going to move into the areas of concerns, issues that council had, and address a few of those right now. Of course, there was concern about chimney swifts. It's a species at risk, and it was a big concern. So we met with Department of Lands and Forests, Donald Sam, who is species at risk biologist, Donald Hurlbert, biodiversity manager, and Maggie Rice, who is a regular chimney swift recorder at the site. Attended a meeting, and we met on site with them, and we walked around and viewed various viewing locations. It was a very positive meeting. We were very happy to meet with them. They could not see a problem with the site for the sign. They didn't see a problem at all, especially when they knew the capability of the sign, the capability to dim it or program it to not be on, and so on and so forth. They could not see an issue with that at all. And a very positive outcome for that was that Maggie Rice volunteered to sit on a committee for the Memorial Park designs so that she could offer her expertise and her input when it came to enhancements for the focus on the chimney swifts. And there will be focus. That's one of the interpretive panels will be dedicated to information about the chimney swifts. And we also have a learning circle where people can sit and view the chimney swifts. So that was issue number 1. Issue number 2 was a neighbor's response to the sign. So Deborah, Ryan, and I stood in the park and on the site where the sign is going to be located. And we looked around and we found every house that was within the view plane of that site. She provided me with the civic numbers, and then I attempted to make a list of people that we needed to contact. Interesting thing, you can't use the phone book anymore to find phone numbers because everybody has cell phones. Very few people have landlines anymore. But it took me about 2 days, and I was able to get enough information to start contacting people. And I had to do some door-to-dooring as well, which was very interesting in COVID times, old lady on your door with a mask. It was a very interesting response to my presence on their doorstep. However, the good news is 100% of the neighbors were in support of the sign. They were very positive about the sign, with comments such as, well, finally get to see what's going on in the community. And one lady said, good, I'll know what's going on at the school now. And someone else offered to, as soon as you're ready and need help, let me know, I'll be there to help. So we had a very good response to the sign and didn't identify any problems at all. The next issue, of course, is the solar option, and John Ray is much more familiar with this, so I'm going to turn it back to him.
Well, unfortunately, the most familiar person with this is Mike Parker, and he's not here today. In your notes there, you'll see that Mike was cited on his experience with solar, and Mike is pretty sharp on a lot of this stuff. I think it's a great suggestion. Actually, when they said the county was talking about this, I was pretty fired up about it because I thought it would be a great idea. But when you don't know anything about something and you find out things, it may change your mind. The cost of setting up just solar to run just the sign is probably cost prohibitive. Well, more likely it is, because you need a building to hold your batteries. You need some solar panels set up. It's just not going to really work. And where does the building go? How big of a building do you need? Now, the technology is changing all the time. I'm not going to say this won't happen in a few years. Now, Mike had a great idea. At the last paragraph there, he mentions maybe the county would think about a solar field someplace and be able to set up that so that you're selling back into the power grid, which would offset the cost of your sign. Now, the sign cost is small, but maybe it's big enough to help set the cost of the lights at the track, the artificial soccer field. Maybe think on a bigger scale than just the sign. I think that's a great idea as far as that goes. So in my closing on that, I think it's a wonderful idea, but I don't think the technology cost versus what that sign is going to cost to run per year is really cost benefit right there right now. So we'll leave that with you, but it may be something to think on a larger scale for the county. I mean, everyone's going green. There may be federal, provincial money to help out with a larger type of solar field. Now, I know Nancy's going to do the closing here, but if you notice on the very last thing we gave you, I think at the last page we gave you is a Sports Hub community event sign contribution form. So if everybody takes a look at that, maybe think about helping us out a little bit on this from a personal point of view. It's nice to sell the idea. And like I say, once we really start hitting businesses that we haven't done yet, I don't think it'll be a problem to raise a few $1,000s more. And Nancy, I'll leave you with that for the closing.
Okay, before the closing, I just want to address the county bylaw issue as well. I believe that was raised. That was the very, very first thing we did, was to explore the local bylaws. And so we contacted the planning department of the municipality of Annapolis County, and they directed us to the town of Bridgetown land use bylaws. And that was our guiding document to help us determine what we should be looking for as far as the sign and lighting and so on and so forth. So we will have to, once we start the installation to the bylaws, we will have to look at that again to make sure we comply with bylaws. And just in closing, I just want to say that, as a small volunteer group, it's just the three of us doing the fundraising. I just wanted to thank the county staff for all of their support. They have been tremendous in helping us every step along the way. And we hope that we have provided you with substantial information in response to your requests for regarding the issues, that you will look at this project and give us permission to erect that sign, and that council will support the ongoing cost for the sign as well. And we plan to continue to working with Recreation Services and other county staff to coordinate the electric sign project and move forward with the enhancements to the Memorial Park. And thank you very much for having us today to explain our project to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council for the presenters, Deputy Warden?
Thank you very much, and thank you for your work and your diligence there. My questions, I have just a couple of them. Could that sign be hacked by some sharp kid driving by?
I wouldn't think. I would think it would be, so you'd have to have a password to the Bluetooth to get into it. We can look into that, but I have not heard of any concerns that way.
Just curious.
Yeah, no.
And the other thing is, who is the Community Foundation of Nova Scotia? Is that just somebody that receives and will distribute checks for your group and then give you the funds?
Yes, they collect to the very end, and say we get to 25,000 and we decide that's enough to do the project. Then they release the money back to the Bridgetown, I think it's there in the file, Bridgetown Community Recreation Association, or whatever it's called. And then they would, well, at this, I guess, initially, the way it's going to finish up, you guys would be buying the sign. So we would give you the money to buy the sign. I think that's how it goes. Or the Community Recreation would buy the sign once the money's given to you.
We're not there yet.
Not there yet.
All right. I thank you both very much.
Councillor Cotw?
Well, it's nice to see that we got some dedicated volunteers there. I know there's some strong people that probably can raise the money with no real big efforts. I think people are behind local, and I think that this is a good project. I'm very pleased with the report you sent us, because we didn't have the answers.
Yeah.
We were asking questions because we didn't know if it could go solar. We didn't know if the people in the area were going to be happy with the sign. So I'm very pleased that the committee, small committee you guys have, took that under your wing and answered our questions that we had, because it makes us feel more connected to be able to make good decisions. Because my last thing I want to do is have someone call me and say, I didn't want that sign there. I mean, so I'm glad you guys have done your work. I'm very pleased. I was very pleased with the report. Very pleased on the knowledge of the solar systems, because green is an incentive that the country's going, trying to get greener. So,
Yeah.
But it made sense. It made sense that to try to put up a building and put panels up, and it's going to clutter the area too, I thought. So, I mean, after your guys' review of it and information shot back, it sure helped on settling that issue with me. Other than that, I'm hoping, and I've stressed a few times at council meetings, is that there will be a committee continuously helping with that park, because everything can't be dumped onto the taxpayers. So we do need citizen groups to help us where they can. Like I know that sometimes insurance policies and stuff like that kind of step in the way, but we still need an adequate group working hard at that park if you guys want it to succeed. And one of the issues, I'm sure if you followed council along, one of the issues that I'm having is that the request for a piece of equipment to run the stuff around the park. And we've had questions about that. Who can run that piece of equipment? Do we have to supply our staff to be there on a Saturday and Sunday event versus somebody from the committee being able to run it? So those questions are still out there, because I don't think we put the money in for this year to buy a vehicle, but it's not that I didn't support it. Those questions have to be answered so I can make a good decision. So other than that, I'm very pleased. I think that you guys done a wonderful job. I know the hub is going to be used if we ever get out of our little bubble of discomfort we got right now we're living with. But no, I'm very pleased, and thank you guys very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Cotw. Councillor LeBlanc? Councillor LeBlanc? There you go.
Thank you. Right. Thank you very much for the presentation. And it's really nice to see that you are covering all angles. And what I love to see is the fact that the people in the area and of all age level are interested
Hi,
and
Steve.
willing to step forward to
I'm in a meeting,
do
Steve. I'll
this
call you back.
particular part. And that way we can see along the years, there's no
We
doubt
do.
that everybody's going to show interest because it is a beautiful sports hub and it is something that will be used for years out of COVID. So, but anyway, with just leaving that aside, I think we have a great opportunity because I know that people from all the different schools in the area and Nova Scotia will probably want to come down and see what a great area it is and what a great hub it is. So thank you very much for your presentation and all of your efforts and to continue on with your great work. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've got a few questions. I'm all in favor of this. I think you guys have done a great job. I'm just thinking of the future and the mechanics as we go forward. So your group isn't an incorporated group under the Societies Act or anything like that, is it? Or is it?
The fundraising group isn't. The group I'm involved with that started the track club 4 or 5 years ago that now have the not-for-profit fitness center here in my building across from the track. We are a registered group.
Okay, so in the future, let's say that somebody who's going to operate the sign, who's going to decide what goes on the sign?
Well, I think that's going to have to be a collaboration between the school and the county, and then probably like if there's a track event going on, the Annapolis County Athletics, I'll call that ACA. ACA would contact one or the other, whoever's going to be the person doing the sign controls. And then if the Lions want to, there'll have to be a number or something, Alan, for somebody to call. Like if the Lions want to put on there's a pancake breakfast Saturday, there'll have to be somebody as a contact.
We will probably coordinate that with the
Sorry.
recreation services.
So, hello, excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have to be recognized. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ms.
Oh,
Ryan.
sorry. Deborah Ryan. We haven't worked out all those details yet because we're at the preliminary stages and getting all the information for council. But at this, we will coordinate that through recreation services in cooperation with the community and work out what's the best format with that. Back in March 9th, we did say that we would develop a policy around the usage of that as per what we normally do. So we do plan on doing that within the community, but it will be used for the sport hub first, the school, and then the community at large.
Okay, well, that's good information to have, but what I'm hearing is that it still is up in the air and it hasn't been decided and hasn't been formalized. And so as we go through the process of actually erecting the sign, I would like our CAO, Mr. Dick, to be involved in that process. And I guess, thinking out loud, that Ms. Ryan, when you do come up with some kind of an organization that's going to, I guess, work the sign, that's going to come back to council. So you say there's going to be a policy that'll have to come back. I'd like to see that sooner rather than later, I guess is what I'm saying. I'd like to see, in fact, I'd like to see that even before the sign goes up. I'd like to see what the relationship is going to be amongst all the parties that you've mentioned, and there seem to be 2 or 3 or 4. So I think we should tie that down. I'm all in favor of the sign. Terrific idea, love it. But I do think that we don't want to have something put up and then somebody says, nobody talked to us about it. And we don't want to have the sign go up and somebody puts something on the sign and somebody's saying, who do we call to find out what happened on the sign? I mean, I just think this needs to be figured out beforehand instead of afterwards. So I urge you to bring something back to council with respect to that policy. Any other comments? Councillor Longmire?
Thank you. I would just like to ask the question around repairs and maintenance moving forward. as to who would be responsible for that?
I think that's going to come out from this policy that I'm looking for. That, I was thinking originally that this group might be a society, in which case the county might enter into an agreement, a written agreement with the society with respect to these issues. But it sounds like it's going to be a policy of the county that is going to come back to the county. All I'm saying is, I think we need some structure for the ongoing operation of this wonderful project. And I'd like to have that figured out sooner rather than later. Does that answer your question, Councillor Longmire?
Yes. Thank you.
Deputy Warden?
Thank you. So this sign, I'm all for the sign, and it took me a while to swallow the track because of this download onto the county that I look at in the end. But the sign, so it's going to be the school events are going to be advertised on this too. A lot more than just track events on all of it.
Yes.
That's what I'm getting at. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. Is the school board checking in any money?
They will be.
They will be? You're sure of that? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. I thank you both for your written presentation and your oral presentation on a great project that's going to be a wonderful thing for the county as we go forward. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Okay, next business arising from the minutes. There's nothing on the agenda. So we'll move into new business. I'm just looking at my watch here. It's 10:20. We were late starting, so I think we'll just keep moving along. Maybe we won't have a morning break, but I'll look at my watch again in about 20 minutes. The first is the Police Association of Nova Scotia 51st Annual Crime Prevention Guide request. That's on page 43 out of 127. Is there anybody to speak to this? Is there anybody to speak to this? Councillor, I think I'll recognize the clerk.
Yes, Warden Parrish. This association puts forward a request every year to council to see if they wish to participate in purchasing an advertisement in their publication. It's been brought to council's attention in the past that we are not part of policing covered by the Police Association because we are policed by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in our area. And in the past, council has not purchased an ad in the Police Association's guide.
Thank you. Councillor Connell? You're muted.
That was my concern because prior to being on council, we went through this several times, is that sometimes the lobbying for funding comes through all our constituents. And sometimes when I went door to door, I'd see the sticker on their door. And it gives them false pretense that they're getting support from the police association, which they're not. This is mainly Halifax area and that area. So I was glad to hear from the clerk that we didn't support it in the past, because it's our taxpayers' money going to something that we get nothing out of other than putting an ad in the paper. I mean, it's we're covered by our CMP, not the police association.
Any other comments? Councillor Connell, would you like to make a motion saying that we won't purchase this ad?
Yeah, I'll make that motion that we do not support this endeavor at this time.
Seconder to the motion. Deputy Warden seconds. Further discussion? I have to look at all these screens. I don't see any, so I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Warden, that will be a recommendation to council.
Correct. Yes. Next is the River Guardians update report. On Clean Annapolis River Project, page 47 of 127.
Move to receive.
Move to receive by the Deputy Warden. Is there a seconder? Councillor Longmire seconds. Is there any further discussion with respect to this report? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried. Next is the agenda packages on the website. And this is brought by a memorandum from me. That's page 50 of 127. And I've set out in the memo my view about the fact that we should be putting our packages on the website, but that we would need to amend our policy with respect to letters, as I've set out here. I took a quote from Mr. Cotw in a report he did to council, which essentially is that letters from government organizations would go on the agenda, but otherwise it would be up to the CAO and the clerk to determine if they would be put on the agenda, but they would always be circulated to all the councillors. What I'm looking for here by bringing this forward is a referral to staff. If council is in agreement with that, this is something they would like to do by putting our package on the website. There are certain issues like how long it would stay on the website. And so I think staff should investigate all the possible ramifications if we do move to put this on the website. So I would be eventually, after discussion, asking if somebody would move that this issue be referred to staff for a staff report for the next month. Having said that, is there further discussion? Councillor Morrison?
Thank you very much. I support the discussion of this item, but I want to make sure that nothing would prevent any councillor for suggesting that any item of correspondence be placed on the agenda for committee of the whole or council. Thank you.
Any other comments? Deputy Warden.
Thank you so much. Listen, I'm all for putting our agenda packages on our website, but I don't think, as you said, I don't think we should be putting correspondence from the public in there. You know, I'm not for that. So if that could be excluded, the business of council should go on the website. I agree. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Connell.
And supporting Deputy Warden Gunn is the same factor I have, is that a letter sent to us from a constituent is their opinion. And sometimes it's insulting. Sometimes it's misinformation. So I wouldn't vote for us to put our agenda on the internet unless the correspondence was wiped out, other than government correspondence.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Redden?
Yeah, I mean, when I went back and looked at policy about correspondence, I thought there was nothing that said we had to. It just said it had to be received so far 6 days in advance before we could, before it would be included in the various packages. So, although I don't object to us sending this to a staff or a report, I don't know if it's something that necessarily needs that much detail and work put into it. I think it's pretty straightforward. If we decide to not include correspondence, that for the reasons that I've outlined, which I think are very good reasons, we should really be having our packages online. And I think the packages is because they're really important to understanding the minutes and the dialogue that's taking part in our meetings, which are already online. I really feel that they should be online right away, and that they should probably stay there as long as the meetings and minutes are online. If we're going to talk about having community understand what's going on in their government, and if you want community involved and engaged in government, which is a key factor in having good governance, I think that information should be there virtually indefinitely. That's just my thoughts.
Councillor Sheridan.
So I think this was talked about in the past, and I think it was an IT problem, if I can remember correctly, that it was a large package to put on, and maybe that's why staff needs to investigate. I'm not certain, but I do believe it was discussed in the past. It is a large package, so maybe something for IT to investigate. Thank you.
Yeah, that's if you see Councillor Sheridan in my memorandum where I started off, I learned last week that we are technically able to put our packages online. That was something Mr. Cotw advised me of perhaps 2 weeks ago. So, but I do think that is something that if we do ask for a staff report on this before we make a final decision, they could confirm whether there are any technical problems, whether we leave it up forever, whether that eats into our memory. I don't know this stuff. They're big packages. There may be other issues. I just can't foresee at the moment, to be honest with you. Councillor LeBlanc, did you want to add something?
Well, you just covered exactly what I was going to say, and it was true. We didn't know at the time, and we should get some kind of answers from the ID department so that they can explain to us, and then we could move on from there. That's what I was thinking.
Councillor Barto? You're muted, Councillor Barto.
Sorry, I guess I'll start again. I agree with most of the comments. I think that what initiated it was whether what we publish on there. I hadn't thought about the issue of data storage and that for a staff report, but yeah, that would be a reason for a staff report. But otherwise, we can make the decision on what goes on and what does not. I think I agree with our former acting CAO, Louis, said that like to put the government notifications or correspondence on there. But I think, and as far as the remainder, we don't want to cherry pick. We wanted to make a decision, it's on or not. And I think personally, I feel that any of the personal feelings aimed at council maybe shouldn't be on that package for the public. It's definitely going to come back on the council packages. But is that a problem segregating that out of that package would be my question. And if that's a problem, maybe, I'm not sure if everybody gets their paper copies. I do, but if the correspondence was at least in that, it wouldn't have to be put on electronically. I'm not sure if that spurs any further thoughts. I see Carolyn's hand up.
Ms. Campbell, did you want to say something?
I was just going to verify, Mr. Warden, what you said. There are no technical difficulties with posting the agenda package. Depending on how good an internet service, some residents may have difficulties downloading it, but we'll see how that unfolds.
Yeah. Again, back to the letters, my concern about having an automatic posting of publicizing, I should say, of letters, which I believe is our current policy, is that hard to compete with a dog.
Oh,
that if somebody was to write a letter that was defamatory of a counselor or somebody who's not a counselor, by us publishing that letter, we are in the chain of possible defendants in a lawsuit if that person wishes to commence action. So we have to think carefully about that. So after hearing the discussion, I still think that Mr. Dick may have, when it goes back to a staff report, may have some thoughts when it comes back to us. And before I call for a vote, Madam Clerk, you wanted to say something?
I did just want to jump in and say that current policy and current practice and current availability make this able to happen now. The policy does not outline what correspondence goes to council. Correspondence that is received by me in the clerk's office can be reviewed by the CAO and the warden for inclusion on the agenda. Right now, it doesn't have to be. Items that are addressed to warden and council need to be looked at a little more than items that are sent to one person only. All of it can be forwarded to all councillors. However, when I'm producing an agenda package, no, part of it doesn't go up and part of it stays off. It is the agenda package. It is as published, and it must stay on there forever. And there's not a, I don't believe there's any size or time issues for that. When we talk about managing and retaining our records, if we are posting, for instance, a recorded video, that recorded video stays up there. That is almost archival because that is a record of the council meeting. Minutes are archival documents, and agenda packages are archival documents. So the discussion between the CAO and the warden and the clerk could take place on what is included in the package, but the package is the package. And it is what it is. It's not one set of books for this person and another set of books for that person. The agenda package is the agenda package. So we technically could move forward, and perhaps the CAO and the warden and I can discuss the compilation of the council agenda that's coming up for discussion tomorrow.
Any further comments? I would ask for a motion recommending to council that staff prepare a report so that we can move forward with putting our packages online. Seconder, someone make that motion? Councillor Longmire moves, seconded by the deputy warden. Is there further discussion?
Is that for a report to June Committee of the Whole?
Staff?
Yeah, for June Committee of the Whole. Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll get this done soon. Yeah. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Next is the recommendation regarding legal services. Now, you have a recommendation report from staff, and I want to introduce this before we begin. I have spoken to the deputy warden, and I've spoken to Mr. Dick about this. There's a few things. The recommendation before you is that Wickwire home barristers and solicitors be retained. And however we move forward on this, I think that should be changed to enter into negotiations with them, because there'll have to be a retainer agreement negotiated. And you'll see from the report that the length of the time of the retainer agreement is one of the issues. There are other issues. I've seen a lot of retainer agreements in my day, and they're all kind of different. So I think that that's the way the motion eventually should read. The other thing is that I and perhaps other members of council might have other issues with respect to how we proceed on this. You'll see there's a further recommendation that Cox and Palmer continue to handle all litigation files. I will be suggesting that there be two further recommendations with respect to the motion or the recommendation that's on the floor. One is that council be at liberty to retain other counsel for litigation matters if it so desires. And secondly, that county be at liberty to retain local counsel for bylaw prosecutions. The reason for this is I really don't want to pay a Halifax law firm to send somebody out to the courthouse in Digby or wherever for a dog bylaw infraction. So I'd like to have the liberty of retaining local counsel to do those things. I'd also like the liberty of retaining other counsel for litigation matters. And I say straight up that we've been very well served by Cox and Palmer. And if some litigation matter comes up, I'd like to have the liberty of having the choice of retaining Kevin Latimer at Cox and Palmer or somebody else with a particular specialty in that field. So I spoke to the deputy warden about the motion, and if the motion proceeds as it's recommended, we're going to get into amendments to amendments to amendments. So as we proceed through this, what I'm proposing is that I'm going to ask for these 3 recommendations that I've mentioned. We'll have a discussion and a vote on them. And then after that's finished, we'll come back to the main recommendation that Wickwire Home, that the CAO enter into negotiations with Wickwire Home with the other sub-recommendations that we may have decided on. So if that's okay with everyone, the first recommendation would be as set out there, that Cox and Palmer continue to handle all litigation files that they have opened until managed to its conclusion or otherwise requested by the CAO or council. Would anyone like to put that on the floor? The deputy warden moves, Councillor Redden seconds. Is there any discussion with respect to this recommendation? Councillor Redden.
It's kind of minor, and I don't know if it's the best thing or not. Not really keen on the CAO having the ability to remove us, Cox and Palmer, from our counsel on the litigation files. It's something I really think we should kind of just have the council have the power to do. I don't know if that's in there for a practical reason or not, but I don't know. It just was a thought.
Yeah, you're suggesting that it should be council. The recommendation, as I read, said or otherwise requested by the CAO and or council. So council could, but you're suggesting, yeah.
But by my reading, the CAO could unilaterally remove Cox and Palmer as our counsel for litigation, and I'm not that I would expect Mr. Dick to do that, but I would like to not have that door open.
Any other comments with respect to that recommendation? If I don't see any others, I'll call for a vote on the recommendation that's before you. Oh, Councillor LeBlanc.
So are we removing or and leaving it or otherwise requested by the CAO and council?
Councillor Redden didn't move an amendment. If he wants to, I'll invite him to do that.
My intention was to start a discussion and let an amendment come forth if somebody wanted to. I did not feel terribly strong about it either way.
I saw another hand up. Was it you, Councillor Connell?
Yeah, and that was my concern was what Councillor Blanc was saying is that do we remove the or? I have no problem the way it is. I hope that I definitely look forward to our CAO working 100% with us, so I don't see that coming to be an issue. But also, if we remove the or, it would put the onus on the CAO and council.
My sense is that it's just a matter of efficiency, that I can't see the CAO changing council without at least talking to me, and the two of us would determine if it needed to go to council. Otherwise, it would have to go to council anytime, regardless of what the details were of the file. But I'm happy if anybody wants to make a motion for an amendment.
Question.
Councilor LeBlanc, you wanted to say something further?
Yes, thank you. Well, with the comment you just said, you're saying then it brought the fact that it would be with discussion with you and the CAO, and it leaves all members of council out of it. So then I don't know that sounds grand either. I think
It's up to you.
No, I'm just saying that just brought another step into it.
If anybody wishes to make an amendment to the recommendation as set out, I'm happy to hear it. Councilor Prout?
Thank you. Yes, I agree with what's been said. I would have no objection to making a motion to just remove the "or" so that we're all in the loop on any topic that came up. Not to say we wouldn't all agree, but I think it's important that council takes part in that discussion and has a role to making the decision. So I would make a motion just to put it out there. Maybe there isn't a seconder or there wouldn't be the appetite to do it. It's no disrespect to our new CAO or to you, Mr. Warden. I would move that we remove the word "or" from that, and so that council is part of any deliberations.
So that's an amendment to the motion that's on the floor. Councilor Prout, is that right?
Yes.
Is there a seconder to the amendment? Councilor Redden seconds. Madam Clerk?
Which "or"?
To its conclusion or otherwise requested by the CAO and council, removing the last "or" in the sentence.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? If not, I'll call for a vote on the amendment to remove the word "or" before the word "council." All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Nay. Motion's carried. Next, back to the motion as amended. Any further discussion? Councilor Barto. You're muted, Councilor Barto.
This is for the total recommendation as written.
I beg your pardon?
This is a vote for the total recommendation?
No, this is just for the recommendation that Cox and Palmer continue to handle all litigation files, etc.
Okay.
Have to remove the word "or."
This is just the second part of it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next, I'd like to ask someone to put a motion on the floor that the county be at liberty to retain other counsel on litigation matters. It's moved by Councilor Longmire, seconded by Councilor Hudson. Discussion on that? Deputy Warden.
So to get back here, thank you very much, by the way. So this is where we're going to get, you're going to enter, the CAO is going to enter in negotiations with Wickwire Home so that the county could possibly retain another lawyer. That's basically what the gist of this first part is going to be.
Right. When, if this motion passes, then when the CAO is negotiating the retainer agreement, he will say that county would like to have this in the retainer agreement, and that, hopefully Wickwire Home would agree. If they don't agree, then it would come back to council to further consider where we are.
So we're actually entering in, recommending the CAO enter into negotiations with Wickwire Home. That's basically what's getting into that motion.
Well,
It's not the
what we're doing, what we're doing right now is there's a motion on the floor that when the retainer agreement with Wickwire Home, if that's where we want to go, is negotiated, that the CAO will say that the county would like to be at liberty to retain other counsel on litigation matters. And that'll be part of the negotiations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Councilor Morrison.
Thank you. If this motion passes and an item comes up that is referred to our council, COUNSEL, then it may be that our firm gets to a certain place and it's agreed or suggested that there should be litigation. We are asking that at that point we will transfer the file. Is that the procedure?
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. That's a very good point. You'll realize that the motion says at liberty to, and Councillor Morrison, I would think that if it was a matter that Wickwire Home had been involved with for some time, we wouldn't be changing horses in midstream. That would be my sense, but that's the way the motion is worded, just at liberty to.
Thank
Further
you.
comments? Councillor LeBlanc.
I don't have a comment, but I would have a request that before we vote on this motion, that it be read by the clerk before we vote on it. Please and thank you.
Councillor Prout, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I was a bit confused here. You mentioned litigation, so I sort of flipped in my head from the part you had mentioned about having a local lawyers deal with local smaller issues. I flipped back over to litigation, which took me to Cox and Palmer. Can you, just for my own edification, explain which one we're actually thinking about here? Or is it the smaller items you mentioned, the dog bylaw, or actual litigation that Cox and Palmer would be doing, not Wickwire Home?
The dog bylaw, the local council, I consider those what I call them prosecutions,
okay,
which to me are different from litigation. I guess you could consider it a type of litigation, but
okay. So you're referring, or sorry.
I would bring that up in a minute after we deal with this motion with respect to the local council for the prosecutions.
Okay.
Same as we're doing for this, that we be at liberty to retain local counsel around here to do unsightly premises and dog bylaws and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bartow.
If we keep breaking this down and breaking it down, what's going to be left for Wickwire Home to work on?
A lot. First of all the labor work, and basically anything other than litigation. All the stuff that any question that comes up from staff or council that is referred to lawyers will be referred to Wickwire Home.
Is it laid down in a policy what our regular council responsibilities are?
I don't understand your question.
Well, I guess, taking out the things like the local dog bylaws or other litigation things, it just leaves a little bit of gray area as to who's assuming that they're dealing with what issues. I just had a little concern that it was not outlined properly. Maybe it is, but I had that question.
I don't know how to respond other than by retaining whatever firm we choose, because there were 3 firms that applied, and there is one in that's recommended by staff. But whichever one we choose, then when legal issues come up, that's the firm that the matter would be referred to. And all we're doing is we're leaving ourselves the possibility that we want to be able to retain somebody local for doing local prosecutions for bylaws, and also with respect to litigation matters, if we so desire. We don't have to.
So that means, are they, as in past procedures, do they have representation at our council meetings?
Sorry, again, I didn't
Monthly?
understand you.
Do they have the monthly representation at our council meetings, the same as their previous legal?
I don't think that, I think the practice has developed now, and it's addressed in the responses to the request for proposals, that lawyers don't usually attend council meetings on a regular basis anymore. They deal more with questions when they come up, and they only attend a council meeting if their attendance is required.
Okay.
Any other comments? Councillor Morrison.
I know we have this motion and another one to go, but it appears to me as if at the end of the day, we can end up with 3 law firms looking after our business if the motion to adopt the Wickwire firm passes. Is that right?
We could, for specific files, we could have different for specific files, but the law firm that would be the go-to firm would be the one that's recommended eventually by council when we get to that. Right now, the recommendation is Wickwire Home.
Thank you.
Councillor Bartow, last comment.
Yep. Would there be expectation from Wickwire Home that they are our legal counsel, and that they would be having loss of profits by us farming out other specific issues to another firm?
That's a matter for negotiation.
Yeah, I think it has to be on the list of to-dos to make sure that we get that nailed down.
Well, we've been very pleased with the work that Cox and Palmer has done with the litigation matters that we've had. We've been very pleased. And all I'm doing is suggesting we'd like to keep the possibility, just the possibility of going back there if something big comes up and we want to do that. I mean, that's all we're doing here. We're not saying we have to. We're saying that when the retainer agreement is negotiated, that we want to have that possibility in the retainer agreement.
Yeah. That's just what I was trying to confirm. Was that
Mr. Dick?
Mr. Warden, if I may, certainly this may seem a bit unusual for Annapolis County, but certainly in the experience I've had in the 4 municipalities I've worked, it's not unusual to have different lawyers providing different levels of service. And so I think, typically you'll have a specialized human resources lawyer that'll handle those labor issues. And you may have litigation lawyers that'll handle those types of issues. And certainly if there's municipal bylaws that you want to look at, oftentimes there's lawyers that specialize in that. So I think what the warden is suggesting is not totally unusual. And certainly I can think to at least the last 2 municipalities I worked at, we may have used over the course of time 4 or 5 different law firms. And I guess at the end of the day, we're trying to get the best level of service we can and give the best bang of the buck for the taxpayer. So I don't really think what we're asking here, maybe we can work on how this is worded, but I don't think what we're asking is terribly unusual from our perspective. And I suspect most law firms respect that, they do have specialties, and those are the services that they may be providing to different municipalities.
Madam Clerk, would you read the motion on the floor, please?
It was moved by Councillor Longmire, seconded by Councillor Hudson, to recommend to Municipal Council that the municipality be at liberty to retain other counsel for litigation if it desires.
Is that clear to everyone? Okay, I'll call for the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's carried. Thank you. And in a similar vein, I'd like to ask for a motion that the county be at liberty to retain local counsel to prosecute bylaw infractions. A seconder is Deputy Warden and Councillor moved by Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Longmire. Now, this is just by way of background, local prosecutions are done in our local courts. Sometimes in the Annapolis Royal Courthouse, sometimes in Digby. Hopefully we could find a lawyer here that in a prosecution, there's usually 2 or 3 attendances in court, setting down, getting the date. Sometimes there's motions and that sort of thing. Whereas the other litigation matters are quite often dealt with in Halifax. So with respect to the bylaw infractions, it would be, I think, helpful to have a local lawyer that's familiar with our bylaws, familiar with prosecuting them, that isn't going to bill us to get in the car and drive for 2 hours to get to the courthouse. That's the honest reason why I'm suggesting this. Comment with respect to obtaining local counsel for bylaw infractions. Councillor LeBlanc.
I only have one question. I agree with having local counsel for these things. I only have one question. We're going through this, but do we have a time frame? Are we looking, or when do we put the retainer for a year, 2 years, 5 years? What do we have here?
You'll see that in the recommendation to council, it mentions
Top of page 52.
that anywhere the services may be contracted on a 1-year term to be renewed on an annual basis up to a 5-year maximum. So that would be the subject of negotiations by the CAO with the law firm that we select. I did have a brief discussion about this with Mr. Dick a few days ago, and he's going to have to talk to the law firm to see how they feel about it. My sense is 3 years. His view was 1 year is too short. The law firm's just going to get to know us. 5 years might be a little long. I mean, it'll depend on Mr. Dick's experience, and it'll depend on what the law firm wants to do. And that's a good question, but it's a matter of negotiation, the way I see it. You'll see that at least in the submissions, they did give a 5-year timeline for the legal fees, for the rates. So maybe it would be 5 years, but that's a matter of negotiation as I see it.
And if I may continue.
Sure.
When we're looking at a shorter time frame or whatever, when you're looking at the fact that this council will be finished in 2024, if you're putting it at a time frame where you're changing the lawyers or the firms and not a great time frame. So I look at that as well. Is that considered?
Well, I would think that any retainer agreement would have a termination clause, so that if a new council came in and they wanted new counsel, that they could do that, I would think.
Thank you for the answers.
Ms. Campbell?
Just a suggestion with respect, Mr. Warden, that by including the word bylaws in that motion, you might be unintentionally restricting that because, for example, unsightly and dangerous matters wouldn't be under bylaws. I think you had used another term, local prosecutions or some such, that wouldn't be quite so limiting.
Really, unsightly premises are not a bylaw?
No.
Oh, well, learn something every day. Okay, that's a good thought. So you're suggesting that we amend the motion that's on the floor to, instead of bylaw infractions, that it read, what was it?
I think perhaps you had referred to it earlier as local infractions or some such term.
Local prosecutions?
Local prosecutions. Okay. Would someone like to make that amendment to the motion? Councillor Redden moved, seconded by Councillor Barto. Any discussion on that amendment? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried on the amendment. So I'd ask the clerk to read the motion as amended.
Just give me a second. Deputy Warden Gunn moved, seconded by Councillor Longmire, to recommend to Municipal Council that the municipality be at liberty to retain local counsel for local prosecutions.
Thank you. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Now we'll go back to the main recommendation from staff. They recommend that Wickwire Home solicitors, they say be retained, and I'm suggesting that when the motion comes on the floor, it read that the county enter into negotiations with Wickwire Home to provide legal services to the municipality of the county of Annapolis. Would someone like to make that motion to put it on the?
Would it be for staff to enter into negotiations to retain Wickwire Home?
As opposed to the CAO?
You
Did I
said,
say?
you said
Oh,
the
I said the
county.
county, did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, staff. Sure,
Staff.
staff. Yeah. Would you like to read it then?
Yeah, the recommendation would be to recommend to municipal council that staff enter into negotiations to retain Wickwire Home barristers and solicitors to provide legal services to the municipality of the county of Annapolis.
Is there a seconder? Is there someone move that? Deputy Warden move, seconded. Is there a seconder? Councilor Longmire. Discussion. You've had a chance to read the responses to the request for proposals. Discussion. Well, I'm going to say that Cox and Palmer was one of the respondents to the requests. And I've been very, very pleased with Cox and Palmer's work for us. Really very pleased. I can't say too much about the work they've done for us. I'm going to support the motion to retain Wickwire Home. Mostly because their rates were better than those put forward by Cox and Palmer. But the voting for negotiating with Wickwire Home is in no way from me intended to be any kind of negative comment with respect to the work that we've received from Cox and Palmer. I also wish to say that I'm myself familiar with the work of some of the lawyers at Wickwire Home, particularly Noella Martin, who I would recommend very highly. I'm not familiar with Mr. Dunning. I haven't had any interactions with him in my practice. But at the Wickwire Home are a very good firm. And as I said, Noella Martin is very good at particularly labor work. So I have no hesitation in supporting the motion. Any other comments? Deputy Warden?
If I may. No, after reading all of those, Cox and Palmer, it served us very well, as you said, Warden. It's just they seem to be a little pricier for our municipality. But the Wickwire Home, they just jumped their presentation, the way they settled it, their rates, everything just jumped right out. And I said, well, these are the obvious ones. My God, when I got my package, it's the one the staff was recommending. So I was quite pleased. Thank you.
Other comments? Maybe you could read the motion again, Madam Clerk, and then we'll have a vote.
It was moved by Deputy Warden Gunn, seconded by Councillor Longmire, to recommend to Municipal Council that staff enter into negotiations to retain Wickwire Home barristers and solicitors to provide legal services to the municipality of the county of Annapolis.
I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. It's 10 after 11. Let's just have a 5-minute break and we'll come back at 11:15. So next on the agenda is a recommendation report, internet reimbursement policy. Perhaps the deputy warden could read
Yep.
the recommendation and we'll
Thank you.
put it on the floor.
Yep, the recommendation that 7-day notice be given for municipal council to approve AM-1.2.1.1 internet reimbursement policy as circular.
Is there a seconder to that motion? Is there a seconder to that motion? I don't see a seconder to the motion. Councillor Hudson seconds. Discussion. Ms. Campbell, I see that you signed it. Would you like to provide some background information other than what we've got in front of us in writing?
Sure. As an overview, it was suggested with the previous council that this policy would be a good way for transparency in relation to reimbursement for councillors regarding internet. There is a best practice by other municipalities to provide a set amount. We had delayed putting this in place because we had sought clarification from the auditors in regards to whether this would be a taxable benefit. It seems that it is, and I did have a brief conversation with the CAO in this regard yesterday. If this is approved, councillors would have the opportunity to opt out by signing a waiver. Any councillors that do wish to receive it would receive it on their second pay of remuneration for the month.
This policy speaks only to internet reimbursement. Is that correct? It doesn't speak to mileage?
That's correct, Mr. Warden. Sorry, it's confusing because advice was provided by the auditor as well at the same time in regards to mileage or kilometer reimbursement. I believe that's a matter that I'm going to have more discussion with the CAO in regards to before we would bring anything forward.
Okay. Discussion on the motion. For those watching on screen, this is the new policy is that there will be a fixed amount to be paid to councillors with respect to using their home internet rather than a reimbursement on what it's costing, which with different programs and different packages were different amounts for different councillors. So this is fixing a fixed amount. And the policy indicates that it will be taxable. Further comments, Councillor Redden?
Yeah, the last time this policy came before us, I had quite a lot to say. A lot of those comments are sort of still there, but I won't go back over them. My bigger thing is I kind of wonder if we shouldn't be looking more in the future to have a policy about our expenses and things we could get reimbursed for as a whole. If we're going to have policies about one thing or the other, they should maybe all be in one spot, and that's more of a long-term discussion, but I wanted to get that thought moving in everybody's brain. And I had another thing there. What was it? It's gone.
I completely understand, particularly at my age. Any other comments? Councillor Connell.
So if this passes, you're saying that the ones that don't want to accept it, we can just sign a waiver and that can be sent out to us?
Correct.
Thank you.
In fact, I think the policy is that you have to claim it. And so if you don't claim it, you probably don't have to sign a waiver, but you can sign a waiver if you want. Councillor Redden?
That was my other comment, was it should maybe be opt-in versus opt-out to be more in line with our expensing of things. But
I think that would still be the policy. I mean, I certainly wouldn't expect to get, I haven't claimed for internet, and I wouldn't expect to get a check for $75 if I didn't ask for it. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, thank you for that. Next is the Bridgetown Elementary School. As I move into this motion, or sorry, I should say this information report, I had a discussion with Mr. Dick yesterday. This is just an information report, but he suggested that I entertain a motion to move this forward today, rather than just an information report, that if council is in agreement, that we put on the floor a motion to send out another request for proposals with respect to if anybody's interested in buying this property. That's not in the report. This is just an information report, but that was his view, that this is what we should do. And so I'm prepared to entertain that should council move in that direction. So since there's not a written recommendation, I'll invite comment with respect to the information report at this stage. Councillor Connell.
My main concern is that in my mind, we have all kinds of options. If we go back in a later time to environment to see if we can get a C&D permit for the land that we own or are paying for, I'm sure the rate of tearing it down if we owned our own C&D site would be a lot less than what we saw in the report. I'd be pretty surprised that the price we saw for demolition included the rate of disposal. So if we own our own C&D site, to tear that school down would be a lot less cost. My main concern is looking at the maps or the aerial photo of the property. There's 3 separate ID PIN numbers, plus the large piece, which if I look proportionately, would be suitable for 4 lots. So my concern is that if we sell it and have somebody interested in it, it's all residential around that area. In my mind, if we could recoup our money for tearing it down and prepping the site for all residential, even if it took what we got out of our lots to cover that, we'd be looking at 7 new properties that hopefully houses would be built. So the income off of those 7 new houses for years to come will be a lot more profitable than giving it away. And that's my concern is that I wished it would have been gone when I was back on council 4 years ago, because we dealt with that at that point too. So we paid insurance, staff time, keeping it, and we're still sitting on it. So I realize that we got to move, we should move on it. But our only income in our county is tax-paying properties. We don't have a lot of commercial. We've tried to get lots of commercial over the years. We're not in a geological or areological place to encourage industry. So I would think it would do the county better to have it into a residential area. And like I said, if we could just cover our cost of tearing it down by the sale of the lots, our money to come in the future would be housing that would be built there. And that is my concern, is that there all kinds of people pop up and want something. We've had not-for-profits put their voice through that wanted it. But as soon as a not-for-profit takes it over, they apply for grants for the county, which costs the taxpayers. So are we getting rid of our problem? No, we're creating more problems because a county can only handle so much. That's my view of it, is that I would like to see it demolished, rezoned all to residential, the lots put for sale. But I realize that in order to do that feasible, is that we'd have to not move on it until we can secure a C&D permit at our own facility. So the cost wouldn't be 300 to 400,000.
If I could ask Mr. Dick, if we did sell this property, would we have to go through an appraisal of fair market value and only entertain a price that was at fair market value or higher?
Before making comment on that, maybe if I could ask the Director of Operations and maybe the Director of Planning to provide some commentary on this first.
Mr. McGinnis?
I believe the report says the only appraisal we did was on the building itself. We didn't do an appraisal on the vacant lots. I'll call them vacant, but the ones without structures on them. So we would need to undertake an appraisal for that as part of the disposal process. I can't comment on whether we would accept something below. I think it depends on the process that we use in terms of the disposal of the lot. That's my comment.
Other councillors with comments? Deputy Warden?
Thank you. With that school, you know, we asked last year when somebody made we put out a request for proposals and somebody came back and said, we'll give you $50,000 for it. Well, that's crazy talk. The lots are worth that. So we said at the time we were going to put that with the real estate, somebody in real estate. I don't know, has that ever happened? I've never seen it in blue on anywhere. A lot of properties are moving. I don't understand several things here. Why it hasn't been put with real estate, why somebody can't buy it and turn it into basically the same thing that Annapolis has there with the old school that they have. Apartments / more cooperative. The lots, you know, I know what lots are going for in towns, you know. And beyond that, why aren't we looking for this for our municipal operations at this property? Centralized it all. My God, we've got our municipal operation strung all over the county, for God's sake. We've got them in Granville, we've got them in Bridgetown, we've got them all over the place. So why wouldn't you move your operations there, if nothing else? You know, make use of that property. We have it. We have it. We own it. So anyway, but as to tear it down, I think that would be an incredible waste of money and resources. Thank you.
Councillor Sheridan?
So this was discussed with past council, and we had discussed just putting the one PID number with the school on it, maintaining, keeping the other 3 PID numbers, and then listing it. I guess it did not happen, but it'd be interesting to see if we put an RFP out just for the one PID to see what people's interests were and what they might like to turn it into. So I'd like to see a motion for it to go forward for an RFP.
Just for the
just for the one, yeah, just for the one with the part of the school on it.
Further comments? Councillor LeBlanc?
as was said by the two previous counselors, we did discuss this, and we did discuss putting the, I'll say vacant lots for sale, but I guess maybe we didn't make a motion to do that. I'm not quite sure about that, but I thought we had. It is a good time to be doing this as far as I'm concerned. And as far as the building is concerned for the old school, I was pretty sure that Councillor Gunn was going to say, well, maybe it'd be a good municipal building, but he didn't go to that route. But it could be maybe something that could be used before we sell it. I'm not opposed to selling it, but maybe Steve or somebody can tell us if that building can be of any purpose for any of our operations before we go too far into the fact that then we have to build something else for our operations. I wouldn't be opposed to make a motion to have the appraisers come in and appraise the lots that are there. That would be my consideration. Thank you. I see Albert has something to say.
Did you make a motion, Councillor LeBlanc, or were you just suggesting it?
At this time, I'm suggesting it because I saw that Albert had his hand up, so he's planning. So I'm sure he has something to say.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Mr. Dunphy, did you want to say something?
Just want to answer a question that was asked a little while ago. When it comes to land sales, the Municipal Government Act under 50 and 51. So in 50, subsection 4, it says a municipality may, under B, sell a property at market value when the property is no longer required for municipal purposes. The only time that it gets into less than market is in 51 when it's going to be sold to a non-profit organization. So that's section 50 and 51 of the Municipal Government Act. One of the other things I was just going to mention is a detractor right now, which means an amendment to the bylaw, essentially, and I'll specify the Bridgetown Municipal Plan and Land Use Bylaw. What it says there is that property is essentially in a residential area. What it says is if somebody wants to use it for an apartment style building or such like that, the only way that you're allowed to have an apartment building in Bridgetown in the residential, it must be on a arterial or a collector street. That street is considered a local street. So therefore, as part of the consideration for rezoning and such, you would also have to take out a section of the bylaw that says a higher intensity use wasn't meant to be on a local street. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you. I see that there was an appraisal in June of last year at $22,000 for the school parcel only. Looking at the report there. Further comments? Is there an appetite around the table to put a motion on the floor to do something? This is an information report, so it wasn't brought forward by staff. Councillor Cotw?
Well, I wanted to comment on Councillor Gunn's idea there, and I didn't take that into consideration. Is the fact is that I know Annapolis has done a heck of a project with the old school in Annapolis, and I don't want to put out there that I want to tear it down. That was my last resort, is that if we tore it down, we'd have a cheaper avenue to go if we owned our own C&D site. But I agree 100% that it could make for housing in that area. So, I mean, it's definitely, I think it should be put on the market for sale. I'd like to put a motion forward that we put it on real estate and put it out there for sale.
Before I entertain the motion, can we do that, or do we have to put out a request for proposals as a matter of law? Can somebody in staff answer that for me? Well, I don't hear anybody. Can somebody on staff help me out? Can we do that? Can we just put it up, hire a real estate agent, or do we have to go out with a request for proposals? Mr. McGinnis?
Well, I think the one item is first we'd have to retain the realtor. So we would have to accept proposals from realtors to act as our agent. So that's a fair process in terms of the retaining of a realtor. That would be the first step. Just my own thoughts are that if we list it with a realtor and we get several offers or an offer, that's market value. But I don't know if it negates the clauses that Albert was referring to that would have us skip the step of getting an appraised value on the parcels.
Any other comments?
Mr. Warden?
Yes, Mr. Dick?
Certainly, I mean, I'm not aware of anything that would prevent us from going to a real estate agent. And given the way real estate agents are compensated, I'd have to give some thought whether we'd have to go for an RFP. And if I understand what the director said in terms of fair market value, well, at the end of the day, we can have an assessed value, but if nobody's willing to offer that number, fair market value ultimately is what people will pay for it. So I think we should consider that as well, that the fair market value might be something significantly different what the assessed value is.
All right, I interrupted in a way Councillor Cotw, who wanted to put a motion on the floor to see if I could get some legal advice on that. But Councillor Cotw, your motion was to list it with a real estate agent. Is that correct? And now are you talking just the school property or the other empty lots? Sorry, I can't hear you.
You're muted.
You're muted, folks.
I think we should just put the school lot for sale for now. I think listen to the comments from our CAO and our Steve McGinnis there is that I agree 100% is that we'll probably find out more exact on fair market value by putting it on real estate than putting out an RFP, because what people want to pay is fair market value. So if we had 5 people that wanted to buy it, we could have a bidding war, which is happening all across. But if we put out an RFP, it's people that just interested in trying to purchase it without having anyone bid against them. They're willing to put in a set price. If we put it on real estate, let the real estate guy do his business, and we may get above market value or our estimated value. But I think that the motion that I made was to put the school lot and the school on real estate.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Longmire, are you seconding the motion? Okay, the motion on the floor is to retain a real estate agent to market the school property. Further comments, Deputy Warden?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I also think that the school, that right along with Fuzzy here, our Councillor Connell, the school, yes, and that lot, it could make one sale, but the other 2 lots that are there, or 3 lots, those are desirable lots. I would think that they would be on the market listed separately. Not all is one big block, you know, the school and the 3 lots, but put the school on, put it on Canada wide, and those 3 lots, see how long it takes them to sell. I don't think it'll take long. Thank you.
Maybe what I'll do, Deputy Warden, is that after we deal with this motion, which relates to the school property, if you want to bring a motion with respect to the other 3 lots, I could entertain that. But we'll deal with the one on the floor. Councillor Sheridan.
So, Mr. Dunphy, he went on about being in a residential area. Is that strictly residential zoned, or can somebody purchase it and put some type of business in there, or is it just strictly residential right now?
Mr. Dunphy?
I got to go back and check the zoning bylaws, but essentially what it would mean, no matter if it was a single family dwelling, I don't think there'd be much of an issue. I believe that there's a rezoning. I believe that the building is listed as institutional. Second thing about it is that any expression of interest that somebody seemed to had before was something for like an apartment building. That's when there's a limitation in the land use bylaw that says it can't be there because you can only have on bigger streets, and that is considered a local street there.
But right now it's zoned institutional, that school building. I think I read that in the report, that it's zoned institutional. So if somebody wanted to buy it and tear it down and make it into residential lots, would they have to go through a change in the zoning bylaw?
Yes.
May I ask a question?
Just to say, I'll come back to you, Deputy Warden. You've spoken already. I'll go to Councillor Redden.
If we sell this as an institutional property, what else could go in there that we wouldn't really have a whole lot to say about as it being institutional?
Mr. Dunphy, can you respond to that?
It's under Part 15 in the institutional zone. You may have the following are permitted uses: cemeteries, community centers, charitable and non-profit clubs and organizations, churches, places of worship, religious institutions, colleges, universities, and schools other than commercial school, daycare facility, government offices, hospitals and medical clinics, libraries, museums and art galleries, mental health clinic, nursery facilities, parks and playgrounds, post offices, the Royal Canadian Legion branches, Royal Canadian Mounted Police offices, and town hall and town offices. Those are the list of uses in the Bridgetown Municipal Plan and Land Use Bylaw Part 15.
That's interesting. It would, my sense, I'm going to make a comment. I'd like to see that become residential just for the benefit of the neighbors rather than having an institution there. I guess maybe we could change the zoning while we own it to residential and then try and sell it. I don't know. Okay, I see Councillor Barteau with his hand up.
I guess just going back over what was brought up in it's institutional, that brings more of an undesirable into a residential area, but it was also noted that if it was converted to something else, that it doesn't qualify because it's not on a collector street for an apartment building, or I guess it would be if it was similar to Annapolis school condominiums. Does condominiums classify as apartment buildings in that same realm, or is condominiums more individual residents per se, and how would that fit into our zoning?
Mr. Dunphy, can you respond to that?
I can give you an educated guess because condominiums are governed by the Condominium Act, and I'm not that well versed in it. But generally speaking, condominiums have to follow the municipal plan, and in that case, there's still a limitation. If it looks like an apartment and it acts like an apartment, there's still the limitation that you can't develop an apartment building or vis-a-vis a condominium in that area because those are considered local streets. So an amendment to the bylaw to straighten that section out has still got to be done.
Any further comments? Any further comments? Mr. Dunphy, you wanted to say something else?
Just checking the bylaw there. The other thing I was going to mention, those other vacant lots with the playground on it and stuff like that, they are in a O1 zone, which is an open space zone. They're not zoned for residential uses either. So that would have to be done. And if recollection, and I'm purely going by recollection here because Property Online has got an amendment and I haven't got it straightened out here yet, but I believe that one of the properties is still in the ownership name of the province and hasn't been transferred to the municipality. Has that been done yet, Steve?
I'm not aware of that
Again,
I'm not aware of that happening yet.
Okay. Yeah, and I can't
Did you-
check, Lisa.
Mr. Dunphy, did you say just one of those 3 lots?
I believe one of those 3 lots, the ownership is still
Yeah.
listed on property line as being in the province's name.
Okay, we're back to the motion on the floor, which is to list the school building with a real estate agent. I'll just make my comment. I would be happy to do that. I don't think that the county should be in the business of trying to develop a site. I think I'd rather sell it to a developer who's going to do the work in developing it. I would like to see it as residential, but if somebody came forward to buy it with the idea of taking it down and selling the lots, then we could entertain an amendment to the zoning bylaw to move it to residential. That could be a condition of the purchase by the purchaser. Any other comments before I call for a vote on the motion? Councillor Connell? Can't hear you. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. My concern after hearing the zoning issue is that are we putting the cart ahead of the horse, or should we rezone all those parcels residential and then put it for sale? Because if I was a purchaser and knew I had to go through a whole zoning process that might or might not change it to residential, it may discourage me from putting an offer in on it. We can say that council would be willing to look at the zoning, but it still has to go through the zoning process to get passed, which could pass or may not pass. So that would be my only fear. I would definitely like to see it go for sale, but my concern is that the way it's zoned, are we better off to take the time to rezone it to residential and then try to put it for sale, or put it for sale now? I guess that's my.
Good. Yeah. Councillor Hudson, you wanted to say something? Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Just briefly, I agree with Mr. Councillor Connell's suggestion that it be put for sale. I'm in favor of that. I will also mention that however that may be sold and how it may be developed will make that property taxable. And I don't want that to be forgotten. And I mention that simply the fact is that additional taxation that may come out of that property will have an effect on the Bridgetown community rate. And it could go quite a ways in addressing that issue.
I'm going to come back to Councillor Connell after hearing him a minute ago. You suggested that it might be better to rezone it as residential first and then sell it. Are you wanting to withdraw your motion?
At this time, I think I would, because I think because of the residential all around it. And I agree, I see what Councillor Hudson's saying, but if we sell it as an institutional spot already zoned, then what is allowed in institutional we cannot stop. It's already allowed. If we look at it and say we would rather see it all residential in that area, then we definitely should do the zoning and get it in residential and then put it up for sale. And I honestly think if we're going to put it in the open market, we'd have a better chance of selling it as a residential area than we would do institutional. Because again, in the institutional one, like Albert mentioned, it could be, and I'm not against not-for-profits owning things, but a lot of times when a not-for-profit owns things, it comes back on the county for grants, and we're not going to get rid of our ability to not have to put money into something else. If it goes to residential, like Mr. Hudson said, it's all taxable money coming into our county. If it's a condo or if it's taken down and sold as lots, it's still all income to the county. And that's, in my mind, what we got to be looking forward to, is to increase our ability to get more tax base, not by upping taxes, but be creating construction and building. So I think all the parcels.
So just on the procedure, you said you do want to withdraw your motion. Is that right?
Yeah, I think I will at this time.
And Councillor Longmire, were you the seconder?
Yes.
And so do you agree with that?
Yes.
So the motion on the floor is withdrawn. And I guess if we follow through what Councillor Connell's thinking is, he would put on the floor a motion to rezone that as residential. Is that possible, Mr. Dunphy? Can we rezone our own property? Mr. Dunphy, you there?
The answer is yes.
How long would it take?
Approximately, depending on what happens with COVID and limitations and stuff like that, but we'll be looking at about 5 to 6 months.
5 to 6 months.
Yep.
Mr. Dick?
So if that was the motion that council wants to approve, would we want to consider doing this concurrently?
You mean list it and at the same time go through the process to rezone it?
Correct.
I guess there's a bit of a, we could do that. There's a bit of a chance that council may not rezone its own application, but I guess that's probably a good bet. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Councillor Connell, did you put a motion on the floor to rezone? I've lost track.
No, I haven't yet, but I do like the comments from our CAO, is that if it's definitely possible to do them both, the faster we can get it on the market, the better off we are, I think. We've had a hold of it too long.
So I'm suggesting that you put a motion on the floor that we apply to rezone the property to residential, and that would be all of the 4 lots, if those need rezoning to residential, so that the county apply for rezoning of the 4 lots plus list the 4 properties with a real estate agent. Is that right?
I would make that motion, yes.
Is there a seconder to that motion? I see. Just a minute. I see the clerk.
Yeah.
While it was suggested that they be concurrent, could you make them 2 separate motions, please? Because they are 2 totally divergent ideas.
Happy to do that if Councillor Connell is happy to do that.
Yes.
So which one should we do first? I guess we should probably do the application to rezone first, and then we'll put a motion on the floor to sell it, having passed a motion to apply to rezone it. So I'll invite Councillor Connell to make a motion then to that the county apply to rezone the 4 lots to residential. Is that Councillor Connell, you move that?
I so move that we put those 4 lots up for rezoning.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Longmire seconds it. Discussion. Councillor Bartow.
It was mentioned before that we don't have legal title to one of the lots right now, and that would have to be sorted out before we went further into that process of zoning. I think, because we would have to establish that we are the owners of that property, and I would agree that we should be. And I'm not sure which property that was. Like, there was only one of them that wasn't zoned residential. And is that the one that's in question with the province, or is it one of the others? And if in that case,
Mr. Dunphy didn't clarify that. He said one of the three he thought might still be on.
Right. One of the three properties that are vacant, that are included in the I think it's what's an OS1 zone, is still labeled as provincial owned. The only one that's institutional is the school building itself.
So
can
we apply to just as this, Mr. Dunphy, can we, the county, apply to rezone a property we don't own?
Not good practice.
That's why I mentioned that.
Yeah. Well, maybe that'll shake out. Any other comments with respect to the motion to apply to rezone the 4 properties? Councillor Sheridan.
I guess I go around in circles when I'm rethinking this, because now we're going to limit buyers and may not have the possibility of selling the building, as opposed to putting out an RFP, which we'd know what they were going to do with the building. I'm just thinking out loud, because all these things, we keep going around in circles, and I'm not sure what the right thing to do is, because then it would be just zoned residential, and a potential buyer might have a good idea to go in there, and we might think, oh, well, that would have been great, but now we've got it zoned residential and he can't do that. So I'm rethinking the whole situation.
Fair enough. Deputy Warden, did you want to make a comment?
Thank you, I did. These lots aren't serviced, and it seems to me that there's somewhere in our policy and bylaws that these lots, I don't know if they're already subdivided from that one big mess or not, but they would have to be serviced. You can't sell a lot unless it's got water and sewer on it in Annapolis County. And don't tell me I'm wrong, because I know of lots that have been subdivided, and, you know, at great expense, people have put water and sewer to them in order to get them subdivided. And consequently, with no building on it today, they're paying water and sewer rates. So, you know, these 3 lots that I'm looking for there, before we could actually sell them, we would have to put water and sewer on. I'm quite sure of that. Maybe perhaps Albert can straighten me out on that. And as far as the school lot and school itself go, I was going to try to get this clarified before. If that was owned by one entity, it could be housing, such as a cooperative. Am I right in assuming that, Albert?
Would you like to respond?
Through you, the warden.
If it was rezoned as, I think the question is, if it was rezoned as residential, could it still be apartments and condominiums?
The part that I was saying, that there's still the limitation. It's not saying, I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. What I'm saying is, it's not just a rezoning, but then you'd be going back to take out another part of the bylaw, because what the bylaw does say, apartments can't be developed on a local street. That is considered a local street. So there's more to it than just a rezoning to change it from institutional to residential. You have to dissect out other parts of the bylaw as well that have that, let's use the word offend, that potential rezoning. It's a lot of work.
What about Deputy Warden's comment that we'd have to put water and sewer at our expense in there before we sold them?
I think, not to speak for Steve, but my understanding is that if it is an existing lot and you are not changing the bounds or the parameters of the existing lots, you do not have to put in the water and sewer unless somebody asks in buying it that you do it as part of the condition of sale. what the deputy warden is referring to is when you create new lots. So those are fairly good size. They're bigger than a normal lot, sort of, kind of, for that residential area. If you decided you want to reduce them down in size, that's a subdivision. That would require the installation of the minimum of the water and sewer, if you changed the boundaries of the lot before you sold them. But because they're existing lots, I don't believe that you have to, unless it's a requirement of a purchase and sale agreement, which you will find out later on.
Councillor Redden?
Is Centennial Drive considered a feeder road there?
I don't know. I'd have to open a map this big.
Yeah.
I'd be a long time looking for it.
So that's fine. I took a quick glance online at the planned future zoning for this whole area, and it's all brushed residential with a very, very broad brush, I would say. And so my kind of thought is that plan's in place. It is 5 years old. Is it older? Yeah. Okay. Mr. Dumpy's indicating it's a much older plan. That rather than us try and second guess what's going on, the institutional uses are probably not exactly desirable deep in a residential zone, aside from maybe a church. And rather than try and second guess or anticipate what a market's going to want, we should either list it as is or list it as residential and not try and think about that. And if somebody else wants to make it something else, then they can put forward another zoning application to us, and we can do it all again. I do like the idea. I think we would like to see it as residential, so we should try and zone it that way, or at least start that process, and just be not, I hate to use the term done with it, but like start moving the cart forward with the horse. My question about listing it simultaneously is, having been just going through the real estate process myself, and my lawyer keeps getting after me, telling me you can't make agreements to agree on things. And I'm kind of wondering if you've got a zoning thing kind of already pending, how is that going to complicate any conditions of sales and things like that?
The condition of sale would be that the zoning goes through.
Yeah, okay, there's not more mess there than that.
Well, it's not completely, free of problems, but it would be okay.
Manageable.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah. I'll yes, Madam Clerk.
This is probably why you got an information report and not a recommendation report.
Exactly. I was having the same thought. However, there is a motion on the floor to rezone it as residential. And I did hear Councillor Sheridan going around in circles. I'm wondering whether we should ask for a staff report in next month and let staff sit down, and Mr. Dunphy and Mr. McGinnis and Mr. Dick, and come up with some recommendations as to how we should handle this. However, there is a motion on the floor, which I guess if the motion's defeated, then we could move along to asking for a staff report. Councillor Connell, how do you feel about where things are now? It's your motion.
Am I muted?
No, you're good.
I'm not disagreeing with you that maybe we should get more in depth on how the process is going to work, because I still hear Albert's concern about the road, but I think that's achievable too. My only fear of institutional, and I'm sure Wendy understands this fact, is that once it's sold as institutional, they can change their mind as long as it's still within that institutional boundary. And that is the problem with leaving it in as institutional is that it could be something that's in the community that the people didn't really want there, where it's residential all the way around it. If it was gone back to residential, then all we got to deal with is the fact is of if somebody wanted to make a condo out of it or housing, we'd have to deal with the road issue.
Councillor Cotw, I was just trying to get to the end of this discussion that we've spent some time on. And
yeah. I think that it probably go back to staff.
So you withdraw your motion again, and
yeah,
Councillor Longmire, you'll.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion's withdrawn, and thank you for all that. So I'll entertain a motion that we refer this to staff for a staff report on dealing with the bridge. I'll call it just the Bridgetown elementary school issues. Councillor Prout, you're making that motion?
I will make that motion. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Councillor LeBlanc, are you seconding that motion?
Yes.
So the motion is to refer this matter to staff for a staff report.
When do you wish to receive the report?
I would ask Mr. Dick if he thinks when he can get it to us. Would it be next month? Is that when you've got this information report? Maybe you can get it to us next month. I think council's ready to move ahead with this. I'd like to have it next month.
Certainly that would be my desire to have it for the next committee of the whole meeting.
Okay, that's what it'll be. So I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Well, that was a good discussion, but it didn't get us very far in the end.
Informative.
But I think we came out with the right way to deal with it, and it brought out a lot of issues we didn't know about. So I thank everybody for that. It's 10 after 12. I think we'll break for lunch now. We'll come back to the signing authorities policy and then move into departmental reports. Is that all right with everybody? So we'll come back in an hour. It'll be 1:10. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the afternoon session of the Committee of the Whole for the County of Annapolis. We're under item number 6, new business, and we're at the recommendation report regarding signing authorities. There's a summary of this in our package, and there's a change to the signing authorities, and there's some background information with respect to controlling the process through internal control so that no one employee has complete control over the signing process. Is there anything further from anybody on staff with respect to this proposal? No? Ms. Campbell, no? If not, then I'll entertain a motion. There's a recommendation.
Recommendation
I'm
that
looking for
7-day notice be given for municipal council to amend AM-6.6.6 signing authorities policy by deleting in subsection 5(2)D during a period that the CAO is absent, otherwise incapacitated, or in the circumstance that could be perceived as a conflict for the CAO to sign. Deleting in section 5(2)E, municipal clerk, and replacing with treasurer, and deleting subsection 5(2)F, the deputy municipal clerk during a period that the municipal clerk is absent, otherwise incapacitated, or in a circumstance that would be perceived as a conflict for the municipal clerk to sign.
There's a seconder for the motion. Councillor Sheridan. Any discussion? Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, thank you. My question is, we replaced it with the treasurer, so is that the CFO?
Yes.
I asked the same question. I think the answer is yes, it's Holly.
Okay.
Although I don't see Holly here on my screen at the moment.
There she is.
I saw another hand, I think. I'm looking around. Councillor Hudson?
Yeah, no, Diane asked my question. So.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion's carried. Next are the departmental reports, the Community Development Report. Are there any comments or questions with respect to that report? Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. Could someone explain a bit more about the youth VIP? Paragraph
anyone?
2 under recreation.
Yeah, anyone here can respond to that? I'm not able to. Mr. Dunphy?
Youth VIP is an initiative that council had asked for previously, but we haven't been able to find the time to initiate it. Basically what it is like a volunteer program where they'd get points, those sorts of things, and it's geared directly to people in grade 9 to 12. And it's a follow-up, as I said, from an initiative that council wanted us to do probably about 6 months or so ago.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any further comments or questions? Madam Clerk, do we need a motion to receive this for information?
Yes, please.
Deputy Warden, would you like to make that motion?
Move to receive.
Is there a seconder?
For information.
Councillor LeBlanc seconds. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is the Legislative Services. Are there questions or comments in that regard? Councillor Prout.
Thank you. Oh, I may have jumped the gun. I apologize. I was thinking of of Don, and I remembered reading in preparation for the meeting about trap, neuter, release, and I connected the two because we've had discussions on that, and I was about to say I was glad to see that that had been done. So my mistake.
Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. On page 76, the Regional Emergency Management Organization. I'm wondering if it might be possible to have the staff person who works on these items advise the REMO Advisory Committee of those activities as they are scheduled and as they happen, in order to provide opportunities, first of all, for the knowledge of the Planning Advisory Committee, and second, for possible observation by committee members.
Mr. Dick, can you see to that?
Certainly can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Redden.
With the Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy thing, I see there's a one formal request in there. Under our previous CAO, he had always been had just really encouraged people to just ask, and he would get them what he could. I was wondering if Mr. Dick would comment on his sort of opinion about the same thing. Like it's being very new to the application process. I know it can be a bit cumbersome and a bit of a barrier to people applying. And I really am a hard advocate for information being available to the public when we can do it. I think that is kind of making sense in what I'm getting at.
And I would certainly concur with you. I would prefer not to have to go through this FOIP process. It's very cumbersome. It takes a lot of resources. So I'm of the same view. Most of what we do, in my opinion, is transparent. So if we can provide this information without going through this process, certainly that's what we would, as staff, would endeavor to do. I mean, there are instances where we can't, but I would prefer to use this as infrequently as possible.
Anybody else? Deputy Warden?
Thank you. Page 75, I'll start there, please. And it's the recruitment of the Director for Municipal Operation. And I've queried in the last few months on what our engineering fees are within the county of Annapolis. We have a lot of projects on the go, and it seems to me we pay an awfully lot of money in engineering. Although it's not itemized on our budgets and one thing and another, it's blended into the operations or the overall cost somehow. And I really wonder, yes, we'll need a director of operations, but I do wonder if somehow in the near future, we're going to actually think about hiring an engineer that I think the county is in dire need of.
I understand the process.
And the bullet on the top. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Well, having put it out, we're going through the process. I don't know if Mr. Dick is able to speak to it at the moment because it's ongoing.
What I can say is that we have gone through the first round of interviews. The director and myself and Kate have gone through the process. We've interviewed the candidates. We're in the process of going to the next stage in terms of looking for references. And subject to that, we will be coming back and making a recommendation to council in terms of who we are proposing as the replacement for Steve's position, as he's done at the end of the week. And then what I'd like to see happen with that position is before we make any decisions in terms of, replacing the manager of operations, I want to allow that person to have a little bit of time to sort of get his or her feet wet, and then they can come back and indicate how they would like to proceed going forward. And if that means, I think it's a good point. Do we have an engineer on staff relative to having consultants? I'll wait until that person's been here for a little bit of time, and then we can hopefully make a recommendation to council at that time.
Thank you.
Councillor Hudson?
Yes, in the employment advertisement, did it not ask that the candidate have a designation? An engineering designation?
Do you recall, Mr. Dick?
That I wasn't involved in the posting of the applications. I'll let the director answer that question.
It was listed as it would be an asset.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? I have a question. The Protective Services report is part of this report, is it not, Ms. Campbell? On page 77, the waste management, 19 complaints received in April. Is that illegal dumping? Is that what those complaints are? You see that on page 77 under bylaw enforcement? Number 4.
Could I defer to Cheryl in response to that?
Sure.
Good day. Yes, that's how many complaints we have received in the 1 month.
For illegal dumping?
Yes, sir.
So just for my curiosity, can you give me a typical example of the type of situation that results in the complaint?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear half of that.
Sure. I'm not looking for a specific example, but a typical example of a situation which results in a complaint for illegal dumping.
An example would be someone has reported they were, walking down one of the side roads or on the side of a highway where there have been multiple items dumped. Furniture is an absolute. It happens all the time. It could be a freezer. It could be just boxes of items. Today we are dealing with one where it's furniture, it's boxes. It is actually buckets of oils. But we have the most unique items that could be anywhere from the smallest item to the hugest. So sometimes our officers can't even handle what needs to be picked up. We have to get a contractor to come pick up large items like sofas and beds and that type of thing. And it's regular.
So if somebody has a sofa or a bed that they want to get rid of, what's the proper way to handle it?
Well, normally it is to be done during the spring and fall cleanups. They can take it to the Lawrencetown waste site themselves. I suppose there is a fee in order for them to take it there, but it's not just dumping it on the side of the road.
So they can take it on certain days probably to the Lawrencetown.
I suspect they can.
Site?
Yeah, because I'm not sure. I think they're still only open 3 days a week in Lawrencetown.
All right, thank you for that. Any
You're
other
welcome.
questions or comments with respect to the report? Deputy Warden?
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, I'm glad that I didn't realize this part was part of it, or I'd have put it in before in my question before. Could you explain to me what the Joint Occupational Health and Safety Committee continues and consume large amounts of time? I don't even know what that is, having, been self-employed most of my life. Could you explain that to me a little bit? What Joint
Certainly.
Occupational Health and Safety is? In really short notes.
Really short. The county is required to have an occupational health and safety committee under the Act of Nova Scotia. So we monitor the workplaces where staff are to ensure that they are working in a safe manner, that they have the equipment that they require. We have to hold meetings on a monthly basis, and it requires a lot of follow-up. When we do a workplace inspection, not everything is going to be correct when we arrive. There may be items that they need to repair. Maybe they have a new piece of equipment that they do not have an operating procedure for, and we're going to give them some direction to help them put those things in place. So it does take a lot of our time. We really are spending a fair amount of time on it, but I think we have done a good job in helping our staff stay safe. And there's been a lot of learning that has happened. This past week was actually Safety Week, and I sent out emails every day with some type of information for them to read, to follow on, to give them a little bit of interest in ensuring that their workplace is safe.
Thank you.
Councillor Connell? Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
I think that the safety committee is also in place to take the concerns of employees. That if someone's got a concern that something's unsafe, I think they can go to their safety committee and deal with that. And the safety committee will line up training or anything that they need to again, make their workplace safe.
It can be, however, it does require that the staff have gone through the proper channels first. They go to their supervisor. If they don't get compliance from their supervisor, they can go up the line to the manager or director to say that I need equipment or I need special training. If that can't be satisfied, then they can bring it to the committee and the committee can look at it, and we can actually send a recommendation to the CAO, which asks him to give assistance to see that that situation can be managed in a timely manner.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, do we need a motion to receive this report, Madam Clerk?
Yes, please.
Yes, we do. The Deputy Warden moves to receive for information, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is the Finance Services Report. It's there before us. Are there any questions or comments with respect to that report? Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes, thank you. I see that the net result is on page 79 that we're in favor for $47,000, 606. And
Yeah, with respect to the budget, yeah.
yeah, so we're even doing better on our budget line as far as that goes.
Right.
Thank you very much for saving and going to find that. Holly?
Welcome. That's my job.
Yes, you did good. Thank you.
Councillor Redden?
I don't recall what the Nova Scotia Power transfer is for. I was curious about that.
Where's that? Where's that on the report?
Sorry, that's page 79, just above what Councillor LeBlanc was talking about. I was curious why they're transferring us money. I'm happy they are, but I was curious.
That's grant in lieu of taxes, so they send us that money instead of paying. That's for all the properties they own in Annapolis County.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I also see our towable generator. Looks like it's going to be in a little over budget. I just wanted to note it.
Is that under the municipal operations report?
No, that's the next one.
Is that the end of the next one? Sorry, it's distracting times.
So the budget was 75,000, right?
Yeah.
But the 80,000 includes HST. So yeah, we don't pay much HST. We always get a rebate on our HST. We only pay a portion of that. So it will come in under budget after the HST is taken into account.
Great.
Yeah.
I note that the short-term borrowing on the internet project you've got listed here is $7,255,815. How are we doing with respect to our budget on the internet?
So our budget is 13 million.
Right.
And I think.
But don't we have milestones, or can we somehow compare the borrowing to the progress of the buildup? There's no way to do that.
I'll let Janice or Steve talk to that. I
Sure.
think we're halfway there. September is supposed to be the completion date, and I think we're going to start hooking people up at the end of June. So we're
Mr.
almost
McGinnis, can you
there.
add to that?
That's correct. We're firing up our pop stations. I think there's a little more detail in the municipal services report. But as far as the budget is concerned, we have a set budget and we build to the budget. In previous discussions, in terms of the per kilometer cost here, they're significantly cheaper than our initial contract, and the contract in terms of the scope of where we intended to put the internet is the same scope. What's changed, as I said, is the cost per kilometer, and secondly, where some of the big two here have kind of jumped into the fray and service some areas that we had intended to service. So we find ourselves in a situation where we've been approached by individuals or communities that were not intended to service because we couldn't fit it inside the scope. We're looking at expansion to those communities within the allocated budget to provide those services there. And we're working our way through that process. But we do intend that all the areas that were initially intended to be serviced by the internet project will be serviced, plus some additional ones.
All within the original budget.
Correct. You're correct. We won't exceed the budget. We stop when we hit the limit.
Wasn't there some extra funding that came out a few months ago that we were able to tap into in order to expand our reach?
That's the CTI funding, and there's also the Develop Nova Scotia. That's really been taken on by the private sector, and as I said, they've moved into areas that we initially intended to service. We did have discussions with Develop Nova Scotia, but we're focusing on our original build for instance, Develop Nova Scotia and Bell, I believe, took a fairly big swath out of the Bear River or East Bear River area and up to Milford, as an example. So that's allowed us to point our resources in other directions where we didn't see the ability to provide internet in those areas, but now we can within the budget.
Thank you. Any other questions on the financial report? Councillor Hudson?
Not a question on the report per se, but I would like to just ask our CAO what his views are on accruals.
What was the last word? I'm sorry.
What your views are on accruals.
Accruals?
Accruals, yeah.
That's a standard accounting process. So accruals up to a specific point in time. Is this what you're referring to? Have to be reported? Is that what you're referring to?
That's what I'm referring to, yeah.
Okay. So any expenditure that the municipality has incurred, and oftentimes we don't know at the end of a period what those are, we have to oftentimes make best guesses. We are in a bit of a position where our year-end financial statements, for example, are not issued until a number of months after our year-end. So oftentimes that information is available to us prior to the issuance of financial statements. And if something were to happen in that interim period from the end of the year until the issue of the financial statements, and we know that there's a liability that exists that occurred prior to the end of the year, they have to be recorded on the financial statements at the end of the year.
Okay. I guess I just have one specific thing. The money that that we owe Valley Waste from back 2018 for garbage services, will that be an accrual this year?
Yes, that will be an accrual this year. And based on my limited knowledge, it probably should have been an accrual last year.
That's what I thought, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Seeing none, is there a motion, Deputy Warden, to receive the report?
Move to receive for information.
Second? Councillor Prout? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's passed. Next is the Municipal Services Report. Questions or comments? I have a question with respect to the chart for the internet. Mr. McGinnis, I noticed that some of the roads are done in green and some are done with green with a yellow bar in the middle of the green. What does the yellow in the middle of the green represent? Is that?
I'll defer to Janice. And
where's Janice?
So,
there she
sorry,
is.
the yellow and so the green dots are poles, and the yellow, I believe, is the strand in that area.
So I don't see any dots. What I'm looking at are some roads are green and some are green with a yellow bar down the middle of the green.
Okay,
so
I'm
you're
gonna
telling me that the yellow down the middle of the green road is where the strand has gone up?
Yes, but I got to get a colored copy in front of me here. Just one second.
Very much.
Mr. Warden, are you looking at the top of page 85?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking at actually the bottom one, page 85 at the moment, but it's the same on both on page 85 and also on page 84.
Yes.
Most of the maps. So the yellow, if there's the green, look like those are the roads in our municipality in that area. And then the green is where they've put the strand. Is that right, Ms. Young?
So the green is just the highlight of the roads.
Right.
The light yellow that you're looking at. That's by the looks of it, that is Middleton area.
No, it's in all the maps.
Yes, I know, but I have to look at the key in the overall when you log into the site management. There's a key there. So this map, when I had sent it out, the blue area showing you the area of where they work, where they are currently working.
Which map are you looking at?
So any of them. So if you look at the blue shading,
yeah,
that is the area that this particular, whatever map you're looking at, is where they're working in at that current state. That was the purpose of this, putting these maps on, is showing you where they're working in the different areas of the county that past week.
Okay, my question was the yellow in the green. What does that represent?
Second. I'm just pulling up the live map. So the yellow tells you total strand construction progress in that particular area.
And what's the difference between that progress and the blue?
The blue is actual where fiber is.
Okay.
So
right,
the strand is the metal support strand.
Right. I know the difference.
Yeah,
I know the difference between strand and fiber. So now, if it's just solid green, that's just a road. If it's green with yellow inside, that's the strand has been put on that road. And if it's blue, that means the fiber is up on that part of the road. Is that right?
Actually, the green is, they're all kind of, it's sort of glued together, but it's the green itself is actually little dots, and it's the poles.
Well, anyway, it looks like a line to me.
Yes, because it's been scanned in the.
Okay, well, that's okay. So the green are the roads. The yellow shows where there's strand, and the blue where there's fiber.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Councilor LeBlanc?
So that's one yellow. What about the orangey yellow? Is that like going up to East Ingleville?
That is just a community, like a line between a different community, I believe. The section. So, yes. So if I click on that.
So East Ingleville.
It's just a part of how they sectioned out the mapping.
It's part of a community boundary that they've used to manage their build.
Yeah. It's just an outline of an area.
Oh, I see. It's better on
Yeah, so if you scan it out, it'll actually show you North and South Mountain in one great big chunk.
Other questions or comments?
Thank you.
I don't, there's one. Deputy Warden?
Can't leave it alone. Thank you. So on other, and began remote course public procurement sector professional, 203. Could I have an explanation on that?
Oh, sorry.
Our, if I may, our employee, what page are you on?
Page?
On page 83 of 127.
So,
I'm always happy to see people get educated.
I have about a reshuffle I did of duties about a year ago. we've moved our employee Amy Barr into procurement, and she's taking courses to bring a more specialized effort to that because of simply the number of contracts and contractors that we have on strength. And she's taking some courses to bring a certain level of expertise to that endeavor.
Thank you. Good.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, Deputy Warden, would you like to move to receive? Can't hear you. I see your lips, and I'll take it that you've moved to receive. Is there
Move
a
to
seconder
receive.
for that? A seconder for that? Councillor Sheridan. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried. Okay, let's get organized here. Next is the CAO office report, and it's a summary of the reports from Mr. Cotw before he left. I'm sorry, what was
And
that?
I'll move to receive.
And move to receive, second. Second for that, Councillor Bartow seconds. Are there any comments or questions arising out of those reports? Deputy Warden, yes.
You know, I'm going to ask a question. David,
Yes.
Mr. Dick, will we be receiving these kind of reports weekly?
Only if Louis will keep writing them. Yes, you will be receiving them.
Good answer.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, there's a motion on the floor. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion's carried. Next, we'll go to part 8 of the agenda, Council Committee and Organization reports. First is the Warden's report. With the pandemic, I don't get to cut a lot of ribbons and do a lot of public events. So I've been spending my time practicing law again. It feels like dealing with the lawyers that there's stuff every day. I sign the checks, I go through the finances, I monitor the affairs of the government, and in the last week, I've spent a fair bit of time with our new CAO, Mr. Dick, to bring him up to speed and do what I can to smooth out his introduction to the county. So that's my report, unless anybody has any questions. Next, the Trans-County Transportation Society report.
Thank you.
Councillor Connell.
Oh, I believe that's me.
Oh,
We'll,
you have to receive my report?
We'll receive your report.
I'll receive my report. Okay, and is there a second? Councillor Prout, were you going to second that?
On your report?
Yes.
Yes, I will. Yeah. Sorry,
Thank you.
again, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's such a strange day.
Trying to find this other one.
All those in favor to receive my report, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion's carried. Next, the Trans-County Transportation Society report.
Thank you. Just a couple things, a little bit out of the ordinary. The meeting we held via Zoom on the 21st went well. There's a short summary there. I would say number 2, the fact that at that time, on October 21st, TCTS was looking to hire a couple of more drivers. I don't know if that's still the case. I haven't heard if those positions have been filled. We did approve the budget for the year at that time. Again, this was pre-shutdown by the province. The number of calls for drives had been increasing. And I would take note that there was an update from Nicole Hackenschmidt on April 27th. And I won't, maybe I will read that part because anyone listening in might not be aware. It said in part, due to the rapidly increasing number of COVID-19 cases, TCTS will be temporarily suspending all travel into the central region, or I'm sorry, the central health zone, which is HRM and surrounding communities. TCTS management and its board do not take this decision lightly, but have to act in the best interests of our staff, their families, and our clientele as a whole. We will analyze case data and advice from public health daily and will resume operations as soon as it is safe. Please note that transportation to all other areas will still be provided. Should that change, an update will be given immediately. So the situation was fluid over the last month, and it's nice to see that yesterday our numbers came down a bit, but everything in that report is still in effect at this time. Thank you.
Questions or comments for Councillor Prout? Councillor Prout, I have a question. We're going to next go to the, well, not next, but further down, the King's Transit Authority report, which shows that people aren't using the bus as much as they have been. And I wonder, with the increase in the trans-county transportation ridership, do you think people are taking TCTS instead of riding the bus in the pandemic?
Well, I think they're two separate entities in that if you're taking TCTS, it's sort of point to point. You're going from your home or wherever you're set up to be picked up to an appointment and back. I wouldn't think there'd be much crossover there, but
Okay.
Perhaps Councillor LeBlanc can answer that from a King's Transit point of view. All I can report is that the number of calls up until this last shutdown, people who wanted drives, that had been slowly increasing. It was like we were getting back to perhaps a more normal number. But I don't think there's much crossover there. I'm not sure, Councillor LeBlanc.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Wish for me to answer?
Sure. Sure, go ahead.
I would have to tend to agree with Councillor Prout. It's a totally different type of transport. And a lot of the time, they do sometimes transfer, but not that much. Our clientele is specific in each area. So their numbers were going up, but they were just going back to where they were. And that's basically that's what we're looking for too. However, ours is a different story.
Thank you. Is there a motion to receive Councillor Prout's report?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by the Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Any other questions or comments?
No.
Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried. Next is the Soldiers Memorial Hospital Foundation report. Councillor Sheridan.
That would be mine. If you've read through it, it's probably, you don't need me to reread it, but I will point out there is a motion coming up from the Doctor Recruitment Committee to ask for a virtual tour of the new clinic. I have been looking into that since I've read my package, and I spoke to Councillor Prout on this. As soon as we are able to get a virtual tour, I will certainly bring it to the Doctor Recruitment Committee and pass it along to councillors. Right now, as it sits, the clinic is still doing a donor wall for all the big donations that have come in. So the clinic isn't complete to do the virtual tour, but as soon as it is done, I certainly will pass it along to the Doctor Recruitment Committee.
Good, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Sheridan with respect to this report? Seeing none, is there a motion to receive, Deputy Warden? So moved. Second. Councillor LeBlanc seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is the Physician Recruitment and Retention Committee.
Thank you. In order, in consideration of the hospital report that Councillor Sheridan just gave, perhaps it would be in order just to table that for the time being until there is an actual virtual tour that maybe, I understand, may be becoming to us in the near future. Sorry.
So you want to table this request?
I see, I may be out of order there because I see Carolyn is waving her hand.
Madam Clerk, yes.
So if this motion goes forward as it's presented, that would work, because then staff would be the contact for the people at the practice to get in touch with us, to get in touch with council, rather than tabling this, waiting for someone to go back to another physician recruitment and retention committee for it then to come back to committee of the whole. So if you move forward with it the way it is, council would probably find out about it a bit quicker as it comes up, and Dr. Ribeiro could contact staff, and that just leaves out a few extra layers that may not necessarily need to be there.
Right.
So does that convince you, Councillor Prout? You'd like to move forward with this motion then?
Yes, that would work for me, provided I don't speak for the hospital foundation, but I see Councillor Sheridan was nodding, so perhaps that's the way to go.
Councillor Sheridan, what would you like to say?
Well, I have a meeting tomorrow with the foundation, and I was going to bring this forth to the meeting. Rather than ask Dr. Ribeiro about it, we could probably do it on our own as a foundation. Then I could bring it forth to council without going through her, because we're doing the fundraising for the clinic. So it'd be probably up to us to do the virtual tour. So I thought I could step in there and bring it to you instead of going through the doctor. It would probably make it easier as opposed to going through the doctor, but it's whatever council chooses.
Councillor LeBlanc?
There's two parts. So could you do the second part as well, which would be to describe their model of care, which was one part that was wanting by the committee. If you look
Actually,
at the last bit of
that is on the website, on Soldier Memorial Hospital Foundation website. There's a whole layout of the new clinic. It shows the floor plan. It shows how many square feet there are. It shows what they do there for care, and all the exam rooms. There's 26 exam rooms. It does the whole thorough layout of the building. If that's not sufficient, then
I don't think that, if I may, I don't want to interrupt, but I believe that if we could bring in Councillor Longmire, because I don't think that is specifically what we're looking for in that particular aspect. Maybe she could more or less, or Bruce, just Councillor Prout can explain that bit. Because we got to go a little bit further than that.
Okay.
I would defer to Councillor Longmire because I believe that was her specific ask.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Longmire.
Thank you. I was wanting to inquire as to whether or not it was same day appointments.
Okay. It is not. You call like on a Thursday, and then your appointments within the 2-week period from the time you call, and that's only, you call only if you do not have a doctor, so they will take you in that situation.
Okay, and as well, is there a geographical boundary around where residents wouldn't be eligible to seek that center per se?
I think it's the whole western end of the valley, but I can check on this because I think you either go to Berwick or Middleton. When you call this number, they will place you either to Berwick care or to the Middleton care. So I can come back with you on that question, or if you prefer, you can forward the motion along and they can answer that question for you. But I have a meeting tomorrow, so I can certainly bring that up.
That'd be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. I understood there was a difference between the clinic and the foundation. Is that so?
Yes,
So
there
Yes.
is.
it's to the clinic that our committee is addressing its request, not to the foundation.
Okay, I'll step aside.
That's my understanding.
No problem.
So I have to confess, I'm kind of lost where we are at the moment. Can I go back to you, Councillor Prout, as to where we are, what you'd like to do with this?
Well, I was pleased to defer to Councillor Sheridan in that she has a meeting tomorrow and would perhaps be that would be the most efficient way to have our questions answered. I was thinking more of the virtual tour was our main ask there. I understand there are. The more we get into this from our committee's point of view, I've held meetings since with an overall sort of a mid-valley umbrella physician retention and recruitment group. So anything we can do to streamline what we're looking for, and perhaps it sounds like what Councillor Sheridan was proposing would be a way to go on that.
So then I take it that, I don't know if we got a seconder to a motion or if you actually moved it.
No, I think I moved to table it, but I stood to be understood that maybe we would let Councillor Sheridan get back in touch.
Yeah, I think since there's not a motion on the floor, there's really nothing to table. So I think if we just leave it where it is and bring it back in due course, that should work. Madam Clerk, would that be sufficient?
Yeah, if that's wishes of it's a committee recommendation is what's on the floor. So if the committee agrees with that, then
we'll bring it back next month after Councillor Sheridan has.
Is that a motion?
No, we'll just leave it to come back on in the normal course. Councillor Sheridan or Councillor Prout can put it back on the agenda. Sorry, Councillor LeBlanc, you want to say something?
Well, I think that we should kind of put this motion on the floor. At least it's in the books. And there's no doubt that Councillor Sheridan is going to bring this information to her meeting and get information, that we get the information first from her, or that we receive this information, at least it will be in writing as well. And so that they see that we have a committee at the same time and we're interested in what they're doing. I don't know that it's unnecessary motion. I think the motion is what the committee wanted, not saying that Councillor Sheridan can bring us the answers. There's no doubt about that. I'm not saying that. I'm thinking that this is showing what this committee is doing and what we're looking for and heading down the line with. That's my opinion only. Thank you.
I asked Councillor Prout, and his sense was that he was going to defer to Councillor Sheridan. I guess I'm Councillor LeBlanc. I guess I'll just leave it. If you wish to put a motion on the floor consistent with this recommendation, you can do that, and we can deal with it that way. But that's where we are, I think. I can't hear you, Councillor LeBlanc. Do you want to put a motion on the floor?
Sure, I'll make the motion. You want me to read it as is?
Might as well, sure.
I move that in accordance with the recommendation of the Physician Recruitment and Retention Committee to recommend that Municipal Council request staff to contact Dr. Leslie Ribeiro, Middleton Collaborative Practice, to request for Council a virtual tour of the new Middleton facility and to describe their model of care. And
is there a seconder for that motion? The Deputy Warden seconds. Further discussion that we haven't had already? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Are there any nays? I saw hands flopping up and down. I guess I won't bother. I think the motion carries. I'll declare it carried. Thank you for that. Next, King's Transit Authority report. Councillor LeBlanc.
What I presented this month was the severe weather action plan that they're revising, and they will be going to the legal to find out some specifics about if they have to stop the buses on the road. What are some of the issues that might come from that? So I'm not going to read any of that. I'm pretty sure you read them all. On page 123, you have the ridership report, and it certainly keeps going downhill. And we were told that April, the one coming up, is not going to be any better. It might be a little worse. So as we're going through all of this and we're looking at what we've looked at in the last 2 weeks, May might not be any better. On page 124, you have a draft capital budget with the comments from the general manager, the interim general manager. And at this particular time, they are going to be giving, they have picked one GM, so they're going to put their offer into the GM to see if he accepts. Other than that, what will be happening is during the budget, throughout the whole thing, is everybody is looking at the same thing. We need the buses, but the money's coming out for electrical buses. So if we look at the last page of 127, basically what he has brought to us is the fact that maybe before buying new buses, because the numbers are down, the monies, aren't coming in as much as they did. We have our government grants and everything else. However, we've been given a chance to receive buses from Halifax County, which they're retiring. And he believes that it's probably a best time to use this facility again until we have a feasibility study that they wish to have on the use, if possible, for electric buses that seem to be getting better and better, because at the time we were talking about it, they couldn't do more than half an hour driving, and now they seem to be thinking that they could go for a couple of hours or whatever. So they want to be doing a feasibility study about that. So in the interim, instead of going out and purchasing buses, they would rather obtain the used buses and put some money in, which will be like we did before. I think we said we put about $40,000 to $45,000 in the refurbished bus that we received last year from the Halifax Transit. So it'll be probably around the same number for these buses. Other than that, so if that's going to be being done, they're going to be also revisiting the capital budgets to see what's going on in that 5-year time or 7-year for these buses and checking on the amounts that might be needed at the time. And that is where the money is from the government and where the money that's coming from for these electric buses. They also discussed the salary increase for the non-union, and they have come up with the 1.6%. They more or less took an average of everybody in their in every municipal area and took an average. Other than that, that's the gist of what I have.
Thank you for that. Are there questions or comments for Councillor LeBlanc, Deputy Warden?
Thank you. So our operating, or what the Annapolis operating budget is this year, is set at $579.90. This was set by, pardon me?
Yes.
Oh, it's on page 127.
Yes.
and the top of it, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And the motion that's made by Councillor Meisner and
Right.
Harding. So I'm not quite sure who those lads are, but they've set our operating budget at 579.9 in that line. Am I right?
Correct.
Thank you. So, and we're also looking at over the next how many years, 7-year period of dumping $2 million in the new buses. I get that from the other part of this. But what I'm not getting is how much return did we get from, if we're, you know, how much, where do I go over here is what I'm looking at on this other ridership. Page 123, I guess.
Okay.
Or back. Does that explain to me how much, you know, we're subsidizing? Where's the money? How much money did we actually get in?
Up to this time,
Yeah, for that.
if you go up to the top, if you go to year to date.
Year to date, okay. And I got Annapolis East, yeah.
Yeah, and they
And West.
divide it in each section. Yeah. So we're down by a
Oh,
lot.
those are thousands of dollars.
Yes.
Oh, I thought those were riders.
No. Well, yes, but look at the numbers. So when you're looking at those numbers that are down so much, I don't have the specific number that you want.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well,
You want the number of the cost of
well, I'm just trying to get
the ridership money.
I'm trying to figure out what the bottom line is, what we're ending up subsidizing our bus service every year. Is what I'm trying to find.
I'm pretty sure it was in the budget for last year. Holly would probably have that number faster than I have.
So this year we've budgeted 91,000 to come in for revenue. So our net cost is 488,000.
Right.
That's what we've budgeted for this year.
So that's what we subsidize plus the price of the buses.
Right.
Which is slated at how much here? I just saw it here somewhere.
A regular bus is
almost 2 million over 7 years. So that's
Okay.
7 into that 300,000. Okay, so it's about 700,000 a year. Our busing costs us in the county.
But
okay,
you have to. Well, not specifically, because some of that money comes from the government. We get the money. How much of the gas tax did we use, Holly? You could tell us.
I think a couple 100,000 this year in this year's capital budget.
And
from our gas tax, and the remainder comes from, they get grants from the government that they put into like a reserve that we can draw upon.
Right.
Yeah.
So the reserves are set with King's Transit, and they're divided up for Annapolis, Digby, and the core, Kings County. And then we have that money to draw on as well, which is provided by the provincial and federal government.
But what they're saying, instead of doing that, HRM is going to basically give us some buses to use.
Correct.
Now, how long we get out of them.
And what they cost in the end, yeah.
Well, we have buses that are looking at 1.5 million miles on them, and we receive buses from Halifax that have 800,000 that they take out of service, and we receive them for free. But we put the mechanics go through them from front to back, and that's how last year the bus that we have on the road was cost about $40,000 to $45,000 to refurbish, to make sure everything's safe from front to back, to use as one of our buses.
Thank you. I was taken with the mathematics that the deputy warden went through in his head there a minute ago, and I followed it along. And I appreciate there's grants that King's Transit would get from the government, but what I think we were looking at is our contribution,
yes,
both operating and capital, and that, if I remember correctly, the ridership money that came to us was $91,000. Is that right? And we paid 480 some in operating. If I round that down to 400,000, and then if I take the cost of the buses of 2 million over 7 years, that's a little less than 300. So that's where the deputy warden got to his 700,000. And you know, that's a lot of money. Now I understand that municipalities, I think, have an obligation to provide transit, you know, but it just does seem like a lot of money for a ridership that's gone down by 2/3. I don't have any answers, just have observations, I'm afraid.
And those are the observations that are looked at King's Transit right now through the board. It's up to every community to decide what they want to do, I guess.
If I could go back to the other question that the deputy warden asked you with respect to this motion. Now, the King's Transit, that's an intermunicipal authority, is it, Councillor LeBlanc? So do they set the budget of what we pay, or do we set it?
No, they set the budget. We're a partner, and I'm sure that Don and Holly can describe it even better than I can, because it started with them.
My question, so the King's Transit tells us how much money we have to contribute to operating. Is that right or wrong? I see Holly nodding her head. Okay.
Correct.
And
They simply, yeah, they
Sorry, go
provide
ahead,
a service. They provide us a service. They provide a service to us.
Right.
Yeah, we're not part of the agreement, the intermunicipal agreement with the core. So
I see.
That's other
retain
municipalities.
Them. Okay.
That's right. As well, Digby County would be the same. And they tell us how much they need each year to provide the service for us, and what capital contribution we're going to need as well.
As you know, I'm fairly new here. I think I've been here around this table for 6 months. Has there been a study of, you know, on the whole King's Transit thing, financially or otherwise, in the last 5 years that I'm not aware of? No, I see Ms. Campbell shaking her head. Oh, what? No.
I think Don should answer this study part.
Sorry, I've lost track. Who was talking?
That was me, but I believe that Don Campbell should answer that study part, because I know one was done years ago.
Ms. Campbell, do you recall when there was some review?
I should say first, with respect, Mr. Warden, that this isn't an issue we've had or at least I've not had an opportunity to discuss at length with CAO. It needs, the whole issue of transit has to be looked at. There's supposed to be a contract for service which has lapsed, and we have to do a new contract for service. It's supposed to be a contract for service the same as the arrangement that we have with the Y to operate Basin View. So I'm a little puzzled why another organization is approving Annapolis's operating budget. I'm not sure where that authority comes from. And I don't think there's a legal obligation that you have to provide transit, although it has always been seen as a good thing to do.
Councilor Morrison?
Thank you. We didn't ante up in the beginning of this service. There was, in effect, an entrance fee to be a full member. And we, and this was before my time, we said, we don't want to do that. You provide us a service and give us the price for the service. And that's the way we've been operating. And it's not these two people who decided what we would pay. It's King's Transit that drew up the budget and decided what we would pay. And I believe we ought to talk about transit, but there have been attempts to pull Annapolis County out of it. And I remember a CAO about 8 years ago who chided council for spending so much money on transportation. And if we go into a study of this, I'll have a lot more to say then. Thank you.
Councillor Cotw? Can't hear you. Okay.
Yeah, I was there when we started. And we opt out of being part of them because they bought the old Chev dealership in New Minas and wanted to put in a full-fledged mechanical shop and build the castle. And we didn't want to be a part of that. We always chose which buses we wanted to buy. King's Transit never chose the buses we wanted to buy. If there are buses, we're not obligated for King Transit to buy any bus course. There are buses. So we chose to pick small buses to the west end because just the same as a small car, they're a lot cheaper. You can throw them away at the end of their service, have a brand new one fully warranted, and beats the cost of a big bus. We did go through some refurbishing some of the buses because it gets us along. It gets a little bit more use out of them as length of time. But you have to watch how much maintenance costs to do to them. It was one time that we thought that maybe we should be supporting tri-county transportation more than getting into keep running with King's Transit, because when you look at how much we spend, we could almost hire private chauffeurs to put the amount of people back and forth our county. So there should be a definitely look into what's costing us and how much it's doing for our county. We should have an updated version of what we need in our county for transportation.
Well, hearing these comments both from staff and from councillors, it appears to me as though it would be timely to ask staff to review the transportation policies we have and report. Is that the will of council, it seems? Would someone like to make a motion along those lines? Deputy Warden?
I'd move that we request Annapolis County staff to come up with a report concerning the transportation service that Annapolis County is offering.
There's a seconder for that motion? Councillor Barto, you're seconding it? Yeah. Is there any further discussion? Councillor LeBlanc?
I'm just asking, is that only for King's Transit or is it for both?
I would think it
pertains to Annapolis County.
Would it include TCTS?
No, just
no. King's Transit. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay. I guess we're now going into in camera. So we're going in camera with section 22(2)F, litigation or potential litigation of the Municipal Government Act. Is there a mover to do that?
Move.
Deputy Warden so moves. Is there a second? Councillor Redden seconds. Is there any discussion about going in camera with respect to these issues? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Give me a second here. I gotta switch screens. Okay.
Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I want to ask Mr. McGinnis if this is his last meeting with us.
It is. And,
Oh, my.
You think?
Technically, I'm on holidays for the next couple of weeks, just finishing up my tenure, and just
Well, we hope we do see you again for our sake, perhaps not for yours, but I know that on behalf of council and staff, we want to thank you for all the contribution you've made to the county over the years. You've been a great asset to us. We're going to miss you, and thank you very much.
Thanks very much,
Thank you,
council.
Steve.
It's been a great 10 years, and I wish this council, and as now just another taxpayer, all the best, and success. And just my last parting wish is everybody just be kind until we get through all this. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve.
So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilor or Deputy Warden moves, seconded by Councilor LeBlanc. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.